Welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do a roll call, please. Bruce here. Rob Garrity here. David here. Vera Moore here. Jonathan Hurwitz. Brian Schultze, Mike Key, and Susan Bryan here. We also have Justin, our town administrator. We have Todd, our finance director, and we are joined by some folks from the planning board. Welcome. The person whose name says Apollo 1, if you please let us know who you are. Hello. We're having some problems with the audio. Oh, can the people via Zoom hear me? Just give me a thumbs up. No? Okay, I can't hear you.
This computer had restarted when I got here, so I have a feeling the audio might have gotten.
They're all like shaking their heads.
And usually they have a sheet here with the instructions, and it's not here.
I know, I wrote on it.
You did. Let's see, we're working on it. I have a bad feeling it's because it's trying to take the audio from the computer rather than your microphones. Which I'm not positive how to fix. Well, I did already. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Chris. I know, I think it's a problem because yeah, the microphones I think are not connected to the computer properly. Because it's usually
oh, the light came on here.
The lights, my light's been on. But
Oh, mine's not.
hey.
Hello, can you hear us?
Brian.
Brian. Never mind.
First call, sorry.
Let me just email Andrew back and tell him never mind, because he's gonna, I wrote help, so he's gonna come running in here. I don't know where I emailed him from.
The green light's not on.
Thank you all for bearing with us.
Follow it back to the power.
Okay, that way he doesn't come running in. I just sent him an email that said help. All right, thank you again for joining us. We already did a roll call vote. I would like for the person whose name says Apollo to either say. Oh, thank you. Okay, Bob, thank you, welcome. All right, so first, what on the agenda, what do we have first? Do we have town budget stuff or did we have planning board stuff?
Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessors. Okay, great. So if everybody could turn to Article, thank you, Article 8. All right, and we have someone from the Board of Assessors office with us this
Yes.
evening to help explain this to us. You have
Yes,
the floor.
Chris Minchell, Assistant Assessor, also Don Clark is here. I first wanted to thank the board for the flexibility with letting me meet tonight because I had a funeral last week. Unfortunately, I came back from Florida from the funeral with COVID. So my voice is a little off. I'm going to apologize in advance for that. And I will get through this as quickly as possible. We're here about the 22G, which was enacted in 2018 by Governor Baker with the BRAVE Act. The BRAVE Act was for several benefits for veterans, and the 22G is just one piece of it. The 22G relates to our disabled veterans exemptions. They are for disabled veterans who meet numerous criteria, including but not limited to having to have active duty for certain periods of time, having to have an honorable discharge, and having to have a service-connected disability as determined by the Veterans Administration, somewhere between 10 and 100%. Once they meet all of those, they also must meet certain mass residency requirements, as well as occupy the property as their domicile and have ownership in the property. Per the Department of Revenue, ownership interest can either be by owning it outright, holding a life estate in the property, or if it is in a trust, they must be both the trustee and the beneficiary of the trust. The reason for that is trustees own the trust. In the state of Massachusetts, for any of our exemptions, be it veterans or senior exemptions, if the property is in a trustee, they have to prove to me that they are the trustees of the trust and have a beneficial interest in it, or they are not allowed to get an exemption in this state because technically the trustees own the trust. So 22G is affecting the ownership interest of that. Also of note is with our exemptions, any of the higher valued veterans disabled exemptions from $750 up to the 100% disability for a paraplegic who gets a full exemption, they are reimbursed by the state annually on the MDM-1 form, which we do in Gateway. So these exemptions are for the person and not the property. They have to apply for it every year. And if anything happens to them, whether it is they move out of our town, they pass away, whatever the reason is, if they no longer fill out the application, they no longer receive the exemption. If they pass away, they obviously don't fulfill the domicile requirement, never mind the fact they won't be filling out the form. Therefore, they don't get the exemption. It goes with the person, not with the property. Little background information for you, because I'm not sure that any of you, know all about this. We currently have 70 disabled veterans that get exemptions. They range anywhere from $400 to a complete exemption. We had 80 vets in 2020. So even with the 2 or 3 new disabled veterans, we're slowly declining in our numbers because our older veterans are passing away. So summary of the 22G is that this act allows a veteran who meets all of the eligibility requirements except for legal title to their domicile when the property is held by a trustee, a conservator, or a fiduciary for their benefit are still allowed to receive the exemption. So it's really not any cost to the town. The only other thing I wanted to mention, which really it doesn't have to do with the veterans exemption, but I did watch the previous meeting to see if there were questions. I did notice that there was mention of chapter land, and I did want to just basically quickly explain how that's different from these exemptions. Both have applications that have to be filled out every year. Both have a lot of specific requirements and a lot of hoops they have to jump through, but veterans are very specified amount from $400 or $750 or $1,000, depending on which disability they have. They get an exact amount off of their taxes, and it's based on their disability. On the other hand, chapter land is a reduction in value. So on the portion of the land that someone puts in chapter land, which has to be over 5 acres, it has to not be part of the home site, it gets a reduction in value. So their whole property is taxed, just a portion of it gets reduced. And unlike the veterans exemption, chapter land is on the land and not the person. So they're different. And Don is here. He can speak to that better than I. So if anybody had more questions on chapter land, he could gladly answer that. If you have any other questions on the 22G, I will gladly answer that.
Article 8 only applies to the 22G though, right? Not the chapter land?
Nope, nothing to do with anything except 22G, which is just in addition to
Right.
veterans. Veterans exemptions right now are 22A through F. There is a 22H, which we do not have in Norfolk, and then this is 22G, which I
Okay.
would like to have in Norfolk.
Okay. I think I could hear her. Did everybody hear her for the most part? Okay.
Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have one. Thanks for reviewing the number of veterans who take the 22G exemption already.
So
How many-
nobody gets the 22G exemption right now. We have 70 veterans that get a disabled veteran exemption, which is 22A through F.
Right, and G is only for those held in trust, right?
Right. We currently don't have any that, because obviously I can't give one if they are not trustee and beneficiary of a trust. So we don't have any right now that would qualify for this. It would be going forward, or if somebody who's already getting one, that's maybe, for example, one of our paraplegics, say he's further along in his issues and they family or whomever conservator feels that the property should be put in a trust, they could now do that and not have to worry about losing the exemption.
Gotcha.
A paraplegic right now gets a 22F, for example. They would then still be allowed to do this and have the property in a trust that they are not the trustee and beneficiary. They're obviously the beneficiary of it. They're living in the house.
All right.
They have to reside in the house.
Yes, yes,
I
it
think
has to
that
be
was
their
our
domicile.
concern. I think that was just our concern, that if it was in a trust, it could go into perpetuity. As long as
No.
that's not the issue. I don't know that.
No, absolutely not. They have to be, it has to be their domicile, and they still have to fill out the form every year. So if for some reason they are not able to fill out that form and sign it, then I can't do it, even if
Right.
it's not in a trust. They
Gotcha.
like, every year it has to be filled out.
Okay. Anybody else for taxes? No? Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You explained it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
very
great.
helpful.
Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. All right. What's next? I just want to go in order, so in case anybody was joining. Justin and Todd. All right.
Are we kind of stuck on this audio situation? Or
I don't think any of us know how to fix it.
I just wondered if, I mean, I'm not.
And I would love somebody to know it's how, but
Yeah. Katie, I just texted her.
Okay.
She can walk me through getting, they were shut off when I got here. Usually everything's set up, and I think maybe they missed tonight for some reason, so.
can you, Rich, can you give me a thumbs up? Do you hear us just fine? Okay, they hear us.
They can hear,
So,
us. So the mics are working, we just.
so we'll, yeah,
It's supposed to be coming from these speakers, so. the
right now
problem
it's
is-
coming out of this.
Yeah, it's only coming from here.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was a 2-minute thing or a whole meeting thing. That's fine.
I think that we can get it.
I'd love for it to start working before we have to hear from them
Right.
on Zoom again, but let's just click it. We'll see what happens. Nope, no,
Usually that sheet of the,
there we go, we got it. No,
Now it's too long.
she handles a lot. Okay.
turn it up a little bit. Okay.
I was just.
Right there. Great.
And now we know. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Rich, can you just say anything? Just say your name.
Rich McCarthy.
All right, we can hear you now. We couldn't hear her very well before. Okay, go ahead. We gave Justin and Todd the floor for budgetary issues and capital items.
I'm sorry to say this, but they not.
They are.
They are on camera. They can be seen.
Just, you know,
So good evening, everyone. I just want to say, did the committee vote on the 5-year on the bills? Or?
We IP'd it because there were none. Do you want us to un-IP it? Okay. Yep, we IP'd it last week.
So then, Article 2 are the budget transfers. I didn't agree with that when the previous resolution. However, so I'm obviously here to talk with the planning director. That is part of the same, however, we do make one small adjustment. For the OPEB trust fund, it's gonna be 75,000 instead of the 100,000 that set of extension before. Yes.
So now they're having trouble getting you guys because they're.
Yeah, pull your chairs up. Here, we'll switch down, Jonathan. Come to the stage. Give that one to Todd. Todd, if you want to move up and you can sit right there. Perfect.
I'm ready. Is that okay?
You're fine. We'll make sure you move over before we vote.
Should be better. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was largely saying for Article 2 for the budget transfers, we previously had discussed this in our general overview. We made a small change in the first proposed sort of budget transfers. It was $100,000 in the trust fund because of the capital projects that we have and so forth. We set to $75,000. We can discuss more if you need any further information about this stuff, but I believe we covered it in the first initial meeting.
So. Do we have a salt shed or are we building one?
We
We
have,
approved it last year.
Right. So what is this? What's the funding for
This is for the debt payment of it, so we authorized to borrow $980,000.
All right,
The debt actually wasn't done until June. So this payment will be for fiscal year 23, which is the 120,000.
So a ban is a bond anticipation. Right, a ban is a bond anticipation note.
Yep.
So we're going out for short term
10 years.
because we don't have the longer one. We haven't sold the longer bonds yet. And
This is a 10-year ban.
okay,
It fits
so
within our,
trucks don't get 20-year bans.
so, okay,
Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
we've already, didn't we already vote to buy this stuff?
We did,
Correct.
but this
It
is
was
the,
authorized.
this is the payment. This is just making the payment on it. Right,
yes.
we did this last spring. Was it last spring?
We
last
voted the fall to do
Last
the
fall.
funding, and
Yeah.
we didn't get the funding until June.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And one change on this Article 2 transfers, obviously, we have stabilization fund, which we're going to be funding. Again, the idea behind the stabilization fund, we currently have
3 million.
1.983,451. The object here is to keep it about 5% of our budget annualized. We'll be short after we make this transfer by about $80,000 to try and keep it within that parameter. So again, trying to keep it close to the 5% of annualized operating budgets. OPEB trust we discussed, and we just talked about. Clerical union contract is going to actually be pulled from this Article 2 because it has its own standalone Article 3. That'll actually be the amount going into Article 3 for the clerical union contract, which is basically we agreed to the changes and the true up for that because of last year. We didn't pay them for last year. So it's a retroactive pay for $70,000 is the total cost. And the facilities department, based on current conditions and what we anticipate throughout the winter season, with the increased fuel prices. When we have to do budgets back in December, January of last year to say, okay, what's our expected? And here we are a year later. Prices have gone up significantly. So to kind of hedge that off, we're funding that 75,000.
Mhm.
And that's the transfers.
Ask a question about that.
Yep.
Is that heating oil only or is that gas?
Heating oil, propane, natural gas,
Okay.
however it needs throughout the different departments.
All the various.
Heating oils. Yep.
Okay.
So that's transfers and Article 3.
Did Matt's email to us tell us what a percentage of the budget that comes
Well, they're trying to keep 5% in the stabilization fund, I mean, in the,
for the heating oil?
oh, yeah.
The heating budget,
So it's like,
what's a 75% increase? Is that, what's that a percentage of the budget you have?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I mean, Matt unfortunately emailed me and I didn't read it.
Well, it's, hold on.
I had Matt send over advisory committee that asks generally how much a month it is to sort of heat town hall. So I had Matt send that over.
That's just down home.
Yeah.
So.
It's basically doubling. Is what it is, because he sent over, it said.
No, but only for town hall.
That's only town hall. This is
Right, exactly.
Right.
Right.
Okay,
Article 4, there would be no capital expenditures from borrowing. Article 5, capital expenditures other than borrowing, which will be from two sources this year, free cash. And ambulance receipts for $40,000, free cash of $1,192,000. And the items of we've targeted for capital this year include replacing the town hall boiler. And circulation pumps, which is well overdue. That's $375,000. Furnace replacement at the DPW would be about $55,000. Fire department is looking for ventilation fans. They were looking for 4 initially. We're offering to cover 2, which comes to about $12,000. Engine 2, replace rehab. So we're trying to figure out, obviously, new engine is about $1 million. And to try and keep that within the budget's not reasonable or really available at us at this time. We are looking at all different kinds of options. Utilizing some free cash, some ARPA funds, and maybe some ambulance receipts. We might be able to finagle in a rehab of the engine, which basically they would take the unit off site potentially, tear it all down, build it back up, basically have a brand new engine. Don't know the cost. We're exploring that now. But this is potentially gets us to start down that road. Worst case scenario, we have to, maybe transfer some more monies later, potentially in order to get to the new engine, but we definitely do need a new engine. The engine that we have has been struggling. We actually put monies in to rebuild the engine, which is now back at the dealer again because it went again and hopefully is under warranty and can get rebuilt for the time being, but we're struggling with that piece of equipment. Fire department PPE, this is just the standard jackets, pants, uniforms in order to get the person overhauled, $16,000 for that. The automated CPR device, because it's ambulance related, it's going to be coming from the ambulance funds of the $40,000. DPW has a front end loader, needs engine repaired on that, having issues with that currently. To do the repair work on that, it's going to cost about $25,000. DPW roadways and sidewalks, we typically try and do about $100,000 to $200,000 per year. And again, trying to be conservative, but still get roadways fixed. Because we had, some monies from our previous capital request gone in there. And then we also have Chapter 9 monies, which have been helpful too. So targeting about $100,000 there. DPW has fuel iron, trucks throughout town, police cars, et cetera, go over, get their fuel. The actual suppression system that's there does need to be replaced. That cost is about $48,000. One nice thing about the DPW capital item is this wood brush grinder. The initial cost is $85,000 to get a used one, but that's going to potentially allow us some savings of about $20,000 per year based on the current machine and operations going forward. Recreation department suggested a potential wide mower. The mower itself is about $67,000 in total. It's a nice 12-foot wide mower, which basically would do a field in about a quarter of the time that the DPW currently uses the machines. They have 48-inch and 60-inch units, and maybe a little bit bigger units to help them out. But this bigger one could use twice a week, mows the fields, mulches it, don't have to go back to the DPW. So there's a lot of savings there as far as travel time with the trucks, plus also hopefully expediting some of the field clearing, field cutting going forward. Recreation has offered to pay about $33,000 of the bill. The differential is about $35,000. IT, just a continuation of replacement of our regular servers, printers, and desktops. We're targeting $40,000 for them. That's throughout the town, on the town side. Land use specifically look for an otter, regular, large format printer for their plans and building designs and things of that sort. The one that they had has been failing. I don't even know if it still works. I think it's broken. So $12,000.
Rich.
Pretty sure it's not working very well. Norfolk School, a technology replacement. Again, last year we did about $125,000 for the school. The ask is in line with, similar to what they're looking for, about 100,000, again, trying to keep the numbers in, obviously open for discussion, but $100,000 to go to that. The police cruisers, the original ask was for 3 cruisers, but keep trying to be mindful and a little bit conservative, again, not knowing exactly what's going to happen over the winter time, snow removal, heating, any other issues that might pop up. Trying to be mindful of that, targeting 2 police cruisers for them, which is be the marked cars. And that cost will be about $139,000 for the 2 cruisers, and then repurposing the 2 cruisers that would be replaced, someplace on town. Total is $1,232,000, again, $1,192,000 free cash. Ambulance funds of $40,000 to cover those.
I never would have guessed a wide mower is the same price as a police cruiser.
Right, right, with the technology that comes in a police cruiser.
We had talked about the DPW needing to cut back and doing some of the mowing last year. Would this help some of those availability and service
yes.
levels?
What the wood brush grinder, what does it save us? You said it saves us about $20,000 a year. How does it save us that?
It's a good question.
So currently the DPW contracts that service out of their general fund. So they have a contractor do that. By bringing internal, we don't have to pay for the contractor service any longer for it.
What is the so this cost is 85,000. How many years will that last before it'll have to be replaced?
So it's a used machine that they're getting, speaking with Blair, he had mentioned that within 5 years we'll get our cost savings, but it's well over 10+ years that this.
It'll be working.
And
That's what I'm saying.
the existing device is almost 20+ years old, I believe, so.
So it'll pay for itself within 5 years and we'll be
It's targeted.
saving the money
Right.
for at least 10 before we have to replace it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the device that creates the mulch that I pick up at the bin, or is this something else?
Transfer station.
Transfer.
That is correct.
So don't pick your mulch up. Don't pick your mulch up at the dump. That would be weird.
Apologize for that. I can't stop myself.
The machine that grinds all the wood and branches.
I enjoy thinking that for $5. So
Okay.
Thanks. Do you have a breakdown of the IT requests? Like what percentage of that is servers versus?
We actually reduced the overall ask of IT. They were closer to 80,000. But they have requests in from ARPA for some monies now, about $80,000 there. And based on current infrastructure and replacement that they're trying to do, we lowered it to keep in mind because we don't want to buy equipment and have it sit there.
I would say we're going to work with Ton, our IT director, to sort of finalize a plan on where we were. There was about $25,000 for firewall replacement. I think that's definitely a priority. There's also replacement of desktops and so forth. We are utilizing some ARPA funds to do that, so that's where we did the reduction.
The reason I'm asking is I've probably raised this for the last 4 years. at this point. We shouldn't be spending any money on any servers. Printers, fine. Firewalls, yes.
Yeah.
Desktops, of course.
Yes.
Servers, no, right? It is not worth the return on the depreciating asset, not to mention the electricity costs that those things are going to churn through as well. All that stuff needs to be in the cloud. And even if it is more expensive at the outset in terms of migrating our applications to the cloud, we will save big time money. So every year we're asked for the same thing of let's replace the servers.
Yep.
And every year I ask them to see the breakdown, and it's never quite clear of how much of this expense is going towards things we shouldn't be purchasing and things we should be looking to essentially outsource versus how much should be sitting on the desktop and actually used.
We have them come in, and I'm trying to remember the details of that meeting because one of the drivers was the fact that the old Outlook files had to be stored, and we said, how much does it take to convert that and throw it in an S3 bucket, right? And it was like $5,000, which like there is a lot of money to be saved if we just change the basic way we do it.
No, so I think when Todd and I talked about this, really in depth and also talking about Tom, we did a technology overview and that's something that, I think in this day and age, we want to look for cloud-based services. Where we can, when we present the capital in the future, now that I'm here, I know that request is we can lay out exactly what it is, but I do know that $25,000 for firewall replacement. Reduced amount will definitely be for desktops and so forth. So we reduced that from 25.5, I think, Todd, I believe. So we'll break that out in the future. But we agree with you. We talked about this, about moving to cloud-based services. It's definitely a priority for us. You're welcome.
Well, close enough. Close enough.
Even a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the boiler and circulation pump replacement at the town hall, that replacing with another oil boiler?
That is correct, yes. Multiple
Any
boilers.
consideration of them alternatives? There was discussion.
Lots of consideration.
Hold on, please. There was discussion like a month ago at this meeting about alternative sources. Does it need to be replaced this year?
Yes.
It does.
So I'll just give this general information. We've spoken with Matt about this. We actually spoke with Andy from the Energy Committee. That was in part why they withdrew the article, is because this was Matt's priority. We need to have it done. He did a review just trying to see bringing gas to the town was cost prohibitive. Explain that.
Gas, I'm talking to ground source heat pump.
We spoke with, the Energy Committee and so forth, and they kind of understood that this is a priority that needs to be done now.
If we replace with oil next year,
And it won't be
we'll
oil.
be running a 30-year or 25-year system where oil will become an obsolete fuel at the end of that 25 years.
One caveat with this system, is looking at propane.
Okay, so propane will become an obsolete fuel in 27 years. In 2050, all of those fossil fuels will be not available for this kind of heating. I just, putting it out there right now is that it bothers me that I'm sitting on an oil heater at my own, oil burner, in my own house, that I do not want to replace until I figure out what I can do that won't have me in oil 25 years from now. We've got to figure this out, and this is the wrong choice.
What is the life expectancy of this boiler?
25 years.
I think Matt would probably be the best person to answer. I don't feel comfortable saying that. I don't know. It's quite a bit of time. I mean, our existing, I think in the proposal that we had, the current year is like 30+ years already.
So if you make this decision to replace it now, it's there for 25 years.
At a minimum.
It would be the most essential amount of time.
47, and we're talking about we're gonna have to buy a new system at that point, but everyone else in the state will be on another kind of, I'm concerned that this is the tipping point for these kinds of choices in the next couple of years. And we're making a choice that will commit us to something that was going to be obsolete in 20.
Do you know if people can do hydro air?
Going to be obsolete in 10 years.
My understanding.
Well, I know it's expensive. It's gonna be cheaper in the long run.
I apologize for being getting on my high horse here, but
These are part of the discussions we have. Sorry.
Susan, if I may, what's the life expectancy of the boiler right now? I know it's early in the season, but
that's the critical point here. Yes.
I know it's early in the season, but I understand that there are issues with it coming on, staying on,
Right.
and generating heat for the employees.
It definitely is an issue. As I mentioned from Matt, our facilities director, this was his #1 priority. We've had issues with it. In fact, because of the issues with the boilers, we have to explore moving our IT servers up from town hall. In case we have lost power.
Servers.
We're so it's running for the heat.
Okay,
I apologize. And I'm going to ask the same question about the DPW.
yeah.
burner bylaws.
Does Matt feel that, I know it's his top priority. I think what Joyce is trying to say is, do we have one more year out of it? Or do we not even have one more year? Meaning, if we wanted to suggest, I shouldn't speak for you, but I'm trying to figure out what you were asking.
No,
Is potentially if it if it was gonna have maybe a year more, we could take this year to explore a better option than replacing it with another boiler. If it doesn't have, if it's not gonna even make it through this winter, then obviously that's,
I don't know why Matt would make it his priority if he didn't feel.
yeah,
it
no,
needs to be
no.
Replaced. I mean,
No, of
that's where we're
course.
going. So
Yeah,
the idea here is it's a 22-year-old building. The unit itself is to the point where, you know, it's needs to be replaced. I mean,
yeah.
unfortunately,
I apologize for being aggressive about this, but
be aggressive. I don't care. I mean, it just
it's a kind of an issue.
got a town hall I've got to worry about.
No, I understand.
And
I
employees.
mean, we gotta think about
And the new system allows.
15 years, we're gonna be paying a premium for heating oil, which is a really good possibility. A premium.
Well,
for
if
heating.
something has a life expectancy of 25 years and we're at year 22. Unless there's an issue with it, we should assume we have at least 1 or 2 more years in it.
We've had issues with this system and
I'm sorry, I worked for the town a while ago and we had issues with it then. And we talked about replacing it with an alternative heating system, but because I'm just raising some points that I'd like to raise.
We have explored other options. We're not trying to say this is the only option that we're bringing to you.
Right,
It's not without due diligence that we do these things. So,
appreciate it.
again, this particular system that would be replaced would have some redundancy in it. So if one of the boilers does go down in the future, we wouldn't have any issues because we'd have constantly going on.
Is there any, do you know if there's any conversion possibilities with the boiler itself? You said propane.
yeah, Matt's explored it. I think where we're trying to move towards sort of alternative energy projects. I'm not even asking whether grants or anything that we can help to assist with it. That's why Matt has explored. It's kind of,
There are no grants for home heating oil or propane, or heating oil or propane. So,
no, they're moving away from that energy, obviously.
okay,
Has,
thank you.
has something materially changed from a month ago when we were going to fund a study to look at alternatives
pulled it.
for this?
Yeah. So that was,
I know they pulled it, but did they pull it, like, did something materially change?
I
that-
think there was discussion
Right.
for multiple months about the town hall boiler.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was, okay, let's do a study to really see what we need to do. Well, no, I mean, we're at the point.
We don't have, I think you're saying they didn't have
Why
time.
pay $50,000 if we're going to go down this?
So nothing has materially changed. We've just made a different decision.
Pretty much.
Well, I think the material changes that there's no time.
right. And the communication between the energy committee and our facilities director, it happened last week, and just saying what our system's facing. What's the this is a priority, we feel like we have too much life in it. And then that conversation sort of spurred them to withdraw the article.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's right. Answer the question about the Dpw furnace replacement, is it the same story?
Any idea what the difference would be from a propane boiler like this to, say, hydro air or another more energy efficient, less fuel option? Like this is 375, you said it's more expensive. Are we talking $1 million or are we talking $475,000? Because I mean,
It's a significant amount
And like town hall's funky because there's. a bunch
Everything
of
would have to
little-
be reconfigured.
There's a bunch of little rooms which require individual heating sources.
Everything would
As
have to be
opposed to what
reconfigured.
we have now, which is a central system. A ground source system could feed a central system. Air source pumps, you need a bunch of individual units, but. It's, it is what it is at this point, so.
okay,
So
But the DPW furnace.
it's 43 years old.
A few little off in there, but
This is the furnace there is 43 years old. No longer. Yeah,
Can we move that to town hall?
working really well.
that's at its life end too. So this would be replaced with a propane high efficiency infrared unit. And would have the plumbing, electrical work and so forth taken care of. So that's where that money would be for 55,000. Yes, Dave, your question.
I apologize for grinding on this stuff, Susan. So the current system is a oil furnace,
I believe so.
okay, and it would be replaced with a. what did you say?
Propane. High efficiency propane.
And the sort of circulation system would say the same, basically.
Yeah, because it's in the garage.
So it's only the garage, not heating the front offices.
That's my, or I could be wrong. Hold on.
It's gotta be.
I believe.
No, I think it's in the offices. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No consideration of another source there too, because that's probably a little bit easier to do an air source thing with. Well, air source is tough in a big building.
This is $55,000.
Garage like that. All right, thank you.
Well, I think there's no doubt that if this is Matt's number one, Matt has never, at least in my experience since I've been here, Matt's not someone who typically comes with fire drills
Doesn't
and
cry.
asking for money when he doesn't need it. So if he's saying he needs it, then he probably truly feels this is on its last leg. And if you're talking about the only other option would be to completely redo the entire system of town hall, I don't think the town wants to pay for that either. So it looks like we will be using propane for at least 20 years.
And
And
I
that's
just
just what it
want
is.
to confer with your comment on Matt.
Yeah,
He
Matt-
does a good job. and
Matt does a great job.
He spends a lot of time thinking about the alternative.
So, I
energy
mean, we,
And
we now have 20 years to figure out what the next heating system for town hall will be.
And I'm sure he's
Put it
had
that way.
many discussions with Andrew Bakanowski, who has all of your similar thoughts.
Yep. So I mean, we certainly can't leave town hall or our employees without heat over the winter. So. And we can't get into a situation where we take it out now thinking we're gonna fix it and then have the boiler completely collapse this year and leave everybody with no heat. So. I don't know if there's another option. Yes,
Well, I had some general questions, but
of course.
we're still drilling in on this. I didn't want to, okay.
No, go ahead. Anything else?
Yeah, just some general, so just so I understand the context, so the free cash for transfers plus the free cash.
Right.
From capital is what, 2.7 or something, right?
No,
Sorry.
1.682.
Right, yeah, 1.7. And you said that's out of 3 million?
2.9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.9.
And so what's happening, what happens to the other part of that?
We were just talking
Keep
about
that in reserve in case there's any issues
Okay,
as far
right.
as snow removal throughout the season and or any other unforeseen expenses that may come up and we might have to do a transfer in the springtime.
Okay, and then this list, how did this list get compiled? I mean, is it just like a 10-year backlog? There's a lot of, like,
So I'll tell you that list.
these groups are for free.
Yep, that list that you see.
Yeah.
Is from this big list.
Okay,
This big list has $18 million for this year alone in requests.
Right.
So how do we go through and say $18 million and we whittle it down to 1.2? Well, we have to prioritize.
Right.
There's items on here, obviously, long-term, we have school potentially coming around, fire station, we have to list them, they're all in there. But what we do is we ask everybody go through, update all the numbers based on the current situation, current markets, with your best information. After they do that, Justin and myself will meet with each of the department heads. We'll go through all of their requests, item by item, and ask them, what is your priority? You've given us 6 items, but we want to know which is your top priority.
Mhm.
And we try and identify those. Now, as best we can, we try and get as many of the priorities as possible. Sometimes we can't do that, so we have to push it up hopefully and do it next year, but there's no assurances that that's going to happen. Last 2 years been very successful with free cash. Previous to that was half of that. So we have to be mindful and strategic on how we go about these things. Also keep in mind, 18 different plates that we're spinning at any given time. Stabilization fund has to be funded. I know Susan doesn't like it, but the OPEB has to be funded. These items, while they're small gestures, are big improvements for the town's financial health overall, especially when I have to make the calls to Moody's, to S&P, and have these conversations. Well, what are you doing? What is your free cash? What is your fund balances? All those good things. So we have to be mindful of that. So we don't necessarily want to overspend, but we also want to be mindful and get the things that we need to get. We do have also some ARPA monies. In total, it's about $3.5 million between county and what we have. We're identifying a bunch of different items that we can use for those monies. Again, kind of one-time uses. We don't want necessarily recurring revenue. We are anticipating on a couple of different issues that might be budget long-term, but trying to address those items. So from $18 million to 1.2 is about 2 to 3 weeks process between people giving us information, us having sit down individual with department heads prioritizing. After that, Justin and I sit down. I say no to everything. Justin says, well, no, we should probably do this, this and this. So he's the nice guy. I'm the bad guy. But we go through the list and we identify those items again.
Police cruisers will be on every year.
Police cruisers
Because
are on every
we
year.
have at least 2 that age out every year
Mhm.
because we have 7.
And we've had a couple of years.
17 police cruisers. Is
Right.
that how many we have?
We've had a couple of years where it's been lean, where it's
Yeah.
either been no cars or just one car. So
We do just need to get the fire department trucks, engines under control. That's been a big one the last couple of years.
Susan, can I just add one thing to what Todd said, because I think your question, I want to take an opportunity just to plug the capital book that the town did for the first time last year using the ClearGov software, because that does, it's a 5-year capital plan that sort of lays out projects, fiscal year 23, 24, 25, 26. So Todd and I were talking about that. We want to really do that book again, because that's important information. There's a lot of projects in the pipeline that town has, deferred maintenance, et cetera. So that capital improvement plan that we have is very important as well.
No, that's useful information. I'm asking because I didn't know, not because I had a judgment. So that, can I just have one more on that?
Yeah, I forget what you were gonna say, Rob.
Yeah, no, no, follow up. Our purview then, as a committee or board, is to sort of weigh in on the entire item? Yes. Okay. Not to.
Well, no, we can discuss each individual one.
I don't know.
We have over the years made changes
Okay.
before.
But in the end,
We've said, this is an expense that we're not comfortable with. We want to change this number, or I think we've even added money to something and limited money and other things.
in the end, yeah, got it.
Yeah,
No, perfect. Again, new to this. So
Justin.
cherry picking was, yeah.
Justin and Todd don't have to listen to us. We go in and we say, yay, nay, this is too much, this is too little, this is whatever. Sometimes Justin hasn't, he hasn't been here, but sometimes the town administrator has gone back and made changes based on our feedback, and sometimes they haven't. It just depends on how it falls for them and what they want to do. But no, when it comes to voting on it at town meeting, it'll get voted as a block.
And just a caveat for that, as you all know, this is subject to change at any given time up until tonight of the town meeting.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Okay.
Now at town meeting, if say there was a huge uproar about servers or whatever, to not sacrifice the entire article, Todd and Justin can choose to pull it out on town floor.
Well, can't they amend the motion on town floor?
That's what I'm saying.
No, anybody could though.
Well, they could, but I'm saying what would happen was sometimes, there's somebody who's got, a loud voice, and to appease, it can be their choice. They can say, you know what? This other stuff is more important. Let's pull this out for now. We'll revisit it at a special town meeting or in the spring or whatever. If it's super important, they'll say, no, sorry, it has to stay in, and, go from there. But so it's one article.
Yeah.
But we can shape it if we felt strongly about something.
Thank you.
You had a question.
Do you have more, Mike?
I have a lot.
So is the capital plan actually online somewhere?
it's not there yet.
Okay, so but you did it last year,
That is correct.
but it's not available to the
I
public.
have to update. So with ClearGov,
Your plan.
with ClearGov, we started last year with their software system. We had some hiccups and workaround issues with them. The change in dynamics in the town administrator was to not use ClearGov going forward. However, I did use ClearGov on a limited basis, so all the information is still there. I just now have to go back, get the real software, upload it, and then put the stuff back up on there. So it'll be up there shortly.
So 2 questions. One, are we going out for any major debt soon? Does it make sense to just, if we're 50 grand away from 5% in stabilization, does it make sense just to throw 50 more grand in there? Because the rating agency 4.92 is different from 5.0. So should we maybe bump up stabilization just a little bit just to attain this phony baloney thing that they like to do? And the second thing is on what kind of, I'm nervous about just throwing 150 grand in the engine, replace rehab, to replace rehab, but we don't really know if engine 2 can be replaced and rehabbed for 150, 450.
750, which at that point is buying a new one, even at 450, I would say buy a new one, you know, so what kind of.
We want to talk to you about, I personally want to talk to you about that project. Todd, you want to talk about, Todd and I were talking about that, actually thinking about, hey, that, where do we want to put our stabilization? I personally want to investigate, having a definitive financial policy. That's something we need to talk about. Todd, you want to add to that, to this question?
So with respect to the engine, brand new one's gonna be over $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's not. There's no appetite, I don't think, within the budget itself to operate, to take on that debt for $1 million directly. So we would have to either figure out something else, which is what we're trying to kind of do. Say, okay, if we get a refurbished one, and let's say it's $500,000, we just saved $500,000. Because it's.
But you got half the time of a new one.
So I think with this project, understanding sort of chief and how we're trying to maneuver this one, this project, I think it's close to $1 million, as Todd said. We have to discuss whether we have to raise the bid or get a reduced fire engine and have to customize it. So there's a lot of different things going on here. But we're generally looking at about 870, 890. And so before I came aboard, there was an opportunity to purchase an engine, but they were going to utilize ARPA funding for it entirely. Obviously, the revenue loss category of funds that we have is about $1.2 million. That would take up a significant amount of that. So what we're thinking is trying to be flexible. We're going to try and use a piece of this capital to sort of allow us the flexibility. If we can get a refurbished one, we'll definitely explore it. I think Chief Kenny is really interested in getting a new one. And, I think we've been planning for a new one. That's the contingency we've been planning for. So doing a piece capital, a piece ARPA to keep that flexibility of the revenue loss that we have, and then maybe utilize ambulance receipts to get us that new engine. That's what we're planning for, and that's what this project has, but we're obviously going to try and explore having reduced costs if we can do a refurbished one. But I think the plan that we're presenting here is having in mind that we're going to do a new engine, but explore a refurbished one.
But if you do decide to do a new engine, you'll put it in front of town meeting in the spring?
Well, I think we have options. It depends on the market too. But Chief has been talking about, there hasn't been a lot of availability on some of these engines and so forth. But the lead time on some of them, we're like 3 years out. So who knows, really? You can't say definitively, but it could be.
It could be the engine just gets us through the next, a refurbished engine just gets us through in the next few years until we can purchase a new one outright. Meaning the end of the ARPA funds with whatever's left.
I don't know if I would.
Purchasing it.
I don't want to throw good money after bad, I think is what we want to do. Evaluate whether, hey, does it make sense to refurbish this and get 15, 20 years out of the spot? I don't know. I don't really feel if we refurbish the engine, we're going to get 5 years out of it and spend $400,000. I don't really think that makes sense. I think it'll, the long-term game as well.
So for the folks at home, what's the use profile of engine 2?
No.
Does that go out on like every ambulance call? Engine 2 is the one that's going out, so it's in use. Because we don't have a ton of structure fires in town, but we got a ton of ambulance calls.
Yeah.
So if engine 2 is out there every day, several times a day, then it's a different thing. It's like the brush truck, which is in use
I'd like Chief Kenny to talk about it, but the one thing that he mentioned was that when this vehicle is gone down, this is the one that's hurt them the most. They've had to go lease it from another community to get that engine and so forth. And
Sounds like.
Why don't, as the public safety rep on this, why don't I take for action here a follow-up with you and Chief, and we can sit down and talk about that plan, and then we can discuss it with the committee.
Perfect.
whatever the advisory committee wants to do. Then. Yeah.
That sounds great. Thank you. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Awesome. That's awesome.
I do have one question. I think it's super quick. The maintenance department, heating and fuel, that does not or does include the schools.
The number that you sent, the 6,000.
So it allows him the flexibility to utilize. Matt has lines for school and town side.
So both fit within this.
Correct.
Okay, good. All right.
Go ahead.
I promise that quick.
Mhm.
Is there a list of the road and sidewalk maintenance projects? And if there isn't, there should be one before town meeting because it'll get asked. And I'd love to know it before it gets asked at town meeting.
Boardman got done on Harding.
Yeah, Boardman did finally get done.
And
Half of Boardman got done.
You can say other, our DPW directors tended to try to do a kind of a soft shoe up there, and I'd like to have them say, these are the 8 roads and the 4 sidewalks we're gonna do this year. This is in addition to the, whatever money we get from.
To chapter 90, yes.
Yeah, okay, right. And then the, PPR device, is that eligible? Because I wasn't able to figure, is this an ARPA thing problem?
No, it's an ambulance receipts.
Okay, oh, it is, okay, I just wanted to know, thank you.
So you never answered my question about stabilization fund. You
Which
said
is-
you'd had
Right.
conversation.
So we had a conversation, I think, I think it's part of the conversation we'll have. I don't, Todd and I, we don't have any sort of debt that's coming up right now that we're gonna go out to borrow. Obviously, the fire station was definitely a big one. I think we're really close. I don't know. I think we put a recommendation out. We're getting close there. We're coming up with a plan. It's something we think about, but there's a lot that goes into a rating agency, and that scorecard, I think where we're at, it's not a significant change.
So the $50,000 differential that you're asking about is not going to.
It's not, yeah.
But it'll get you to 5%, wouldn't it?
But it won't impact us one way or the other, with the rating agency.
I was saying the spread.
The rating agency wants to see a range of 4.7 to 5.2.
And if we're kind of somewhat adhering to it. Right, we're doing that, which is what we're doing. They're fine with that. It's not going to, they're not going to say, oh, by the way, now you're AAA. That's not what's going to happen. Or, oh, you're a D. That's not going to happen.
Okay,
Would it be better? Yeah, I'm all for it. I'd like to.
I also wouldn't mind locking money away, frankly. Doesn't hang around and grow uses.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. I think there's enough on the list. There's a lot on the list, but I don't see anything based on what discussions that have happened in previous years. I don't see anything that's going to cause an issue at town meeting. Obviously, you can never know.
The $12,000 plotter.
I was actually thinking, what I was thinking, and it sounds really stupid, but I was actually thinking about the ventilation fans. I think that, are we talking about ventilation fans for the current trailers?
I searched.
And the reason I ask is because someone is going to say, that's the first thing that popped in my head is, wait a minute, you want to spend $12,000 to replace fans on a building that you're tearing down in the next year? Like, I can see somebody having an issue with that, although $12,000 is not enough.
Fans are for accident sites.
Yeah.
When they go to a house that's on fire, or whatever, they hook up.
That's what it's for? Okay, good. That's
It's for emergency.
perfect. I'm just saying, like, we need to be prepared for these. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, someone's gonna say this in town meeting. So,
You give a list like David suggests on the roadside, that's gonna be the big thing.
oh, yeah.
So people will argue about it. So don't give the list.
So do it in here, so
Well, you should have the list prepared, but I wouldn't publicize it.
I want the list.
it's in the.
You know the highway commissioner.
Which ones are,
I am I'm one of the several hundred highway commissioners.
all right.
But we don't have highway.
You do, you have 3 selectmen that are.
Okay. That was Article 5.
Oh, 2 select.
They
Sorry,
can't.
can I ask, can I go back to my IT service? This is not a question about servers specifically, it's indirectly. Is it allowable in town finance rules and regulations have employees that have a bonus structure based on achieving certain objectives, one of which might be reduced cost?
It is for him. I don't think it is for anyone else. I think you're the only contract employee, well,
You could do it for.
Well, take this.
But yeah.
So where I was going with this obviously is if we wanted to say, hey, it's an objective to reduce 100K out of the IT spend. We could remunerate we could comp spiff, whatever we want to call it, the person responsible for making those decisions accordingly. That's not a legit thing to do. No budgets.
My response is no.
But they're not lighting
I
up.
would say in my experience, I haven't seen that often. I think my general philosophy when we with department heads, we sort of do, my philosophy is we do sort of performance review, and set objectives and goals. That would be something that would probably be a discussion that we have as objective or goal, but I've never, in my professional career, seen sort of a bonus structure or anything.
Best motivator there is to hit objectives and goals, is to pay for performance and
You have
my non-public service experience. That'll get stuff done.
you have a, like a meets, exceeds exceptional review of your managers?
That's what I've done in my career.
So
I haven't done it obviously here yet.
Manager, they might get an extra amount of money. I don't know if the structure allows that. That's, I think, to follow up on Jonathan's question. I mean.
Todd shaking it. Todd, the money guy, is shaking his head.
There is that.
Yeah.
It's like 5% of the manager.
The reason I'm asking,
It's $500.
Yeah, I've never got it.
the reason I'm, again, coming back to my pet peeve, but I'm sure everyone has similar pet peeves in all different areas, is
Okay.
I've been raising this now going on for 4 years, when, at least my personal opinion, cloud services became viable enough and secure enough and all of these sorts of things, probably longer ago than 4 years, but we really haven't moved the needle on it. Every year, there's always a, well, we're not ready to do it type of answer, or, we didn't plan for it, or, I mean, the answer of the day, it's kind of recycled year to year. Every year, we have a new line item for what we should be looking at as low value, obsolete types of things, and we're bleeding money year over year over year. And I'm just kind of thinking of like, what do we do to disrupt this?
And to add on to Jonathan's thing, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, there was an actual meltdown in the servers, and they came to us to use our slush fund. Sorry, I hate to use that word, but I can't remember what it's actually called. Discretionary spending fund to save the servers that melted down at the end of fiscal year.
It's your reserve fund.
But,
It's your reserve fund.
thank you.
It's not discretionary.
Right, so it's discretionary if we vote or no.
It has to be an unforeseen or unexpected
We
expense.
don't vote, right?
Discretionary.
It's our discretion.
I mean, so your question is, what do we do as a committee / town to take maybe a little more disruptive approach to kind of the status quo of budgeting each year for a number of these things? Seem to be moving
So
really slowly at the burden of the taxpayer here.
So not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think your only recourse, which would be the same, would be my recourse
Yeah.
for OPEB, which is vote no and push for, I mean, that's the whole point of the committee, is push for a refusal to support it. And say, I want to, I want your word, it's gonna come out next year, you're gonna look into other options. That I don't really know, I mean, we don't have that much power, so I'm not really sure what else we can do other than encouraging.
he's a half-time employee.
No, he's a full-time, but we also have a half-time support.
So I mean, that's really your only thing, and I obviously it's too soon to do it right now, but I mean, that I'd say that would be. I want to see this move. We've been asking for it for a long time. We want to see the needle moved on this within the next year.
I think something just to add quickly, I don't want to belabor on this issue, but I really think that as part of the budget process, we have the department heads come and talk about their budget and a vision, and we have to give you a long-term vision. I'm obviously the new person here, but we didn't talk about cloud-based web services. I really believe in it. I think it's a priority. It's a cybersecurity thing, but there's a variety of reasons why you look at cloud-based services. For example, we obviously have limited funds and we have to prioritize, but I spoke with Tom about this. And for example, our phones, we're sort of integrating technology. We're applying for a grant to move this to the cloud, actually. So we are being proactive. I think I'd love to talk about it during the budget process and see what we're doing with the budget and so forth. But we take steps to get there. I know it's a priority for Tom, it's a priority for myself. I think probably be a priority for the organization.
I think we should. Early in the process next spring, when we're here, we have extra time, we should have Tran come and talk to us.
Great, thank you.
All right, Does anybody see anything of any concern? That we need to flag or pull for town meeting and just be prepared for? Um, If not, I think
Thanks, Brian.
we're good.
So increase it 50,000, is that what you want? Just make it happy.
Put a million in there and I'd be happy.
How much?
You could put a million in there and I'd be happy.
No, I can't do that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh, can I put in a plug?
Yeah.
So what's the ARPA clock? When do we have to have it spent by?
2020.
It's spent by 26.
You have to have it committed by
24.
Right, so that's
Next year.
fiscal 24 or calendar.
Fiscal 24.
Alright. So, yeah, next year starts fiscal 24.
Yes.
All right.
Todd, I had mentioned this last meeting, Todd and I have been meeting with our department's heads, and we're working on a spreadsheet. I've called the Norfolk County sort of to throw some ideas their way. We'll have something in a few weeks, but
And it's like 1.2 and 2.4 is kind of the cut, right? Around there.
yeah. 3.5 total, 1.2 and 2.3.
Sounds like if the engine's not going to, the rehab of an engine's not gonna work, it sounds like we might need to use those funds for that. Only because I don't see where you're asking for a $20 million building, you're also gonna be able to ask for $1 million engine at the same time.
That's part of the plan, like I'm saying.
You're gonna have to say, hey, we got it. This free money from the government and we're gonna use to buy it. So, yes.
So the public safety funds, is that only eligible on the replacement revenue side or is it eligible on the other side too?
the public safety funds.
So if you're spending on, say, fire truck, is that
So that's revenue loss.
revenue loss? Only the one- And is that without further?
This caveat, I have spoken with Bill Buckley, so, and he's sort of the Norfolk County Commissioner. It's definitely, it's likely to be revenue loss, but they're gonna work with the county. There's certain sort of parameters of ARPA, so if you can tie it into a specific ARPA, say you got public health, that engine's replying, you know, a COVID case or something like that, you could sort of tie it that way. I think it'd be very difficult, so planning for revenue loss.
And is that without further appropriation, those funding?
Correct.
So you don't go to town meeting to spend that money?
Correct.
All right.
We'll go to Hawaii.
Wouldn't that be nice?
A conference on COVID in Hawaii.
All right. We did, any more questions on the capital items? Transfers. Does anyone out there have any questions just in case or any comments on anything that we've just discussed before we move on? What was next?
Susan, I'll join you in Hawaii.
Wouldn't that be nice? Take those ARPA funds and we'll all take a trip. We already went through most of the articles in order, so. We did Article 7.
Discuss Article 6.
I thought we.
Thank you.
We already voted on that.
Okay, sorry.
What was next on the agenda? By Todd. Huh? Zoning. All right, so Rich. You have the floor, Mr. McCarthy, who is no longer with us. Oh, no, there he is. Okay, sorry. I thought he was gone. He moved up to the top because other people left.
So I do
All right.
have
We need the road acceptances. We just want to go over those real quick with you, and then as well as the zoning articles that we're doing. So if you want to, you have the floor, go ahead.
so we do have Chad Peck, the chair of the planning board, and Chris Mofford as well, vice chair,
Guys,
with us this evening. So quickly, in terms of the both subdivisions, Redwood Circle and Noon Hill Acres, and then Fox Run, which is Warren Drive, Farrington Ave, and Hemington Place. The planning board voted last night to recommend acceptance of those streets as public ways.
Rich, quick question. When you said New Hill Acres, that's Redwood Circle.
Correct.
That's the name of the little spur is New Hill Acres.
Yeah, the 4 lots.
All right. That's been under development for a long time. Was there issues getting the roads? I know they broke through a decade ago, but
So it was, I probably would say it was more of a venture type project for Mr. Dalzell.
So they didn't sell the houses.
Yeah, so it took a while for him. And he ended up selling off the lots in the end to individuals just to build their own homes.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions on the road acceptances? Nope, okay, thank you.
Okay.
So then it's Article 11,
Which
and that
is,
is, how did the planning board vote last night on this?
they recommended all 3 articles unanimously for town
Okay.
meeting with no changes.
With no changes, okay?
Correct. Yep.
So they combined.
All right,
And then
so Article 11 is the zoning map that takes the strip of land for the church, from the church for the fire station. And Article 12 is the new language that will allow a mixed-use building in the C4.
correct. Yep.
Just a general heads up, this article looks a little different from what you guys saw before. Those 2 articles is combined into one.
I was just about to say, where's the other one?
Yeah.
It's not here.
And I did watch your meeting on the 28th of September, I think. So just quickly, if you don't, in terms of the change to the B1 district into the church property, I think Mr. Gary is the one that raised the point about, so the town did apply for a variance for the screening along the church property line for the fire station because the church is within the residential 2 zoning district. And that provision applies to properties within the B1 that abut a residential district to provide a screening buffer along that property line. Because of the requirements in terms of what you need to meet in order to grant a variance, it was suggested that, is there another way to do this? Potentially, which was, again, make an adjustment to the boundary, which extends the boundary just into the church property, 30 feet, to alleviate having to provide that screening along that common property boundary. And one other point just for you as the advisory board to note, there are some special exceptions already within the B1 zone for public properties, which is the town hall and the library. So it's not unlike we've done something in terms of a public facility. Well, this is really not the facility, it's more the buffering between the 2.
So Rich, when you said they did that because of the process to do it, they suggested something else. It sounded like the way you phrased that, it seemed hard, so they're trying not to do it.
Right,
Is that right?
yeah. I think.
Yeah, there was.
Cares about the 30 feet. I think that they care that instead of getting a variance, we're changing our zoning bylaws. That seems backwards.
Well, no, I mean, I get it on the surface of it. It may seem that way, but the concern that came up with the Board of Appeals is that, to meet the criteria for a hardship, it's a high bar. So, there's a lot of thought that could have gone into this. For example, we could have actually addressed this whole requirement before this project even came before the town, which we didn't do. But the town purchased the property from the church for expansion of the fire station, and that zoning requirement was in the bylaw back then. So, and so the ZBA felt that, and there is the swale that's on the property line as well, which serves as the drainage for the church property, that this would be a better route to pursue. Now, if in fact, town meeting, well, if you don't support, I guess, and then on to town meeting doesn't support it, they do have an application that's been continued before the Board of Appeals. And there was concern, there was discussion that, you know, you shouldn't just be handing out variances, you know, there should be a high bar. And
We shouldn't be handing out variances, but we should be changing our zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
Come on.
So
That argument right there doesn't make any sense. I don't have a problem with the 30 feet. Let me make that clear. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm opposing what you're doing. What I'm saying is it seems a little, for lack of a better word, backwards to, instead of just applying for a variance, and yes, unfortunately, jumping through the hoops that you have to jump through to get a variance, the actual zoning board in the town of Norfolk says, no, we don't want to give you a variance, so go change the zoning bylaws. Like that, you used to be on zoning. Can you explain why that would make sense?
So it would make sense if you're very concerned. Frankly, the board I could write this decision that this variance is allowable because of particulars of geography of the lot, which are specific to this lot, but not the zoning district generally. And I think you can sneak that pie, you know, on the variances and sparingly given judgment that the courts lay. However, it would be appealed. If anyone doesn't like this project, they would appeal that variance. And then you're in kind of a long-term gross land court, or I don't know if it would go to land or superior, but it would be a long, ugly process, which you would win at the end. I'm pretty sure you'd win at the end, but it would delay things unnecessarily, and probably these days delay them, you know, maybe a couple seasons, because it would just take a while to wind its way through, I'm guessing.
But the only people who would have standing would be
The fire station or the church?
The church, who are the abutters to the
Only
fire
abutters.
station. The variance would be given to the fire station.
The only other
Yeah.
is the church.
One, three sides.
so that in terms of, you know, part of the conversation, so the church is in the residential district. It's a religious use, so it can go anywhere. So, you know, one option, which even we did touch on it briefly when we were looking at the B1 zone, was just remove that little hole in the district and make it business district, wouldn't
Right.
harm the church. However,
wouldn't
the
affect-
church was concerned in terms of long-term, that if the whole entire church property was rezoned business, if they need to carve off a lot, a residential lot for financial purposes, you wouldn't be able to do that for a single family home in the business district. So this was really a way to address both things, put it before.
Possibly change
the
their
voters.
to rent parking spaces from their parking lot, if they were zoned commercial versus because they do. Even though we never changed our. So,
Question
Mhm.
for Rich. Could you guys have a lawyer look at this? You have because you're not buying 30 feet of land from the church and creating a new lot, which is in the B1, you're taking the zoning. You're putting two zones on one parcel, which I tried to do some Googling about this, and state laws are different. Some states are fine with it. Some states try not to do it. Have you determined whether in Massachusetts this is kosher?
Yeah, so we actually, back in the summertime, discussed it with town council, and they had written back in terms of that it is permissible to do this. So what, because in some cases zoning district boundaries are dimensionally, you know, they're described by so many feet, so forth from a street or whatever, some follow property lines. So this is an acceptable means to adjust the boundary district.
Yeah.
That was
Actually,
something
raised
churches
a pure issue that the planning board and zoning board don't have anything to do with, is that the reason they need this is because the new fire station is gonna be located in the southwest corner of this lot, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, fire station committee is making a presentation at town hall. This will occur before this.
Article 7.
This will engender a lot of conversation about that plan.
Well, committee reports is Article 7, so it will come up before this article.
You know, they're directly related. Obviously. This is not required without moving the fire station up into that corner. So I'm just raising that as a concern for the town.
Yeah.
Rather than for the plan.
I just want to say, again, it has nothing to do with the 30 feet. It has nothing to do with the church versus the fire station versus anything else. It just has to do with the common sense of changing zoning bylaws to allow one thing to fit our need. And I think that is a very slippery slope when we start talking about changing our zoning bylaws to fit a need in which one person, one resident, one developer, one town even has. This was the same argument. I know it's a different topic. This is the same argument we had last spring with the signs. You know, when the town said, we want to change the bylaws to allow for backlit signs, but only for the town to use. It's a very slippery slope when you start talking about changing your rules to fit one person, whether that person is an entity or a person. Do you see what I'm saying? When you're talking about changing your rules so that it suits one group, one person, one entity, whatever you want to call it, I think that's a dangerous way to think. And I think that was the argument we had for the signs. We're like, okay, you want to allow signs, then you got to allow them for everybody. The town can't just have a sign. The town's got to let businesses have a sign.
No, I understand that. I think that as a practical matter, with a better approach for this topic in general would have been what's adjacent to it. So is it a residentially occupied home or property? In this case, you're talking about screening a parking lot to a fire station. So you're not, you know, the intent of it is really to provide buffering for residences. So it.
Well, let's also be honest, if the church wasn't there, that would be in the B1 district.
Right.
Right.
No, but I'm saying, I don't think any of that has to do with it, because there's always a need for when you're asking to change something. For example, again, sorry to beat a dead horse, but the sign thing, the town has a need for a backlit sign. Okay, so you have a need for the backlit sign. Well, if you want that because it suits your need, then make sure it's allowed for everyone. I know that doesn't pertain to this, but what I'm saying is this is the same concept. You're changing a zoning law to suit your own need. And that is a very dangerous approach, in my opinion. I'm not saying I'm going to vote no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think I think if there are other options, you should explore them, because changing the
So
rules
the-
to players instead of applying the rules to all players is how we get into trouble, in my opinion.
So to Rob's point, the other option, and which is still before the zoning board of appeals, was the variance. However, the concern came up that variance could be utilized to appeal it as a tool in relation to a fire station project. Because not that they really care about fundamentally that there's, you know, evergreens screening a parking lot to the fire station, but that it could be utilized as a tool against the fire station. And if this goes down to town meeting, and then they'll have to go before the Board of Appeals, but to avoid protracted potential, somebody appealing it, because there were people of the public that came forward and said they would do it. Now, I don't know if they really would do it, but they certainly have made the point to the Board of Appeals.
So I think that's the risk we have at town meeting. We're going to show everybody the public safety building plans, including that we're going to come for an override to pay for this. And then minutes later, we're going to say, and a zoning law change is going to require a 2/3 vote. So there will be a lot of people who associate this with this opportunity for a 2/3 vote associated with the override, which is not actually being discussed or on the vote, but this is the easiest place to
Slow it all down, it's to stop this because it requires a 2/3 vote because it's a zoning law change. That's a real issue.
Mhm.
And if anyone was against the fire station, they would be smart to not go after the fire station vote down the line. They would hit it here and throw the
That
whole
doesn't
thing
need a
off.
2/3 vote.
Right, because that doesn't need it to.
The other issue I have, and again, sometimes I can beat a point to death and I apologize. But as someone who, as you know, Rich, I build in this town and have built more than one time. It is a huge red flag to me that the planning board and the zoning board are going to bat for what is essentially something that's being developed. Yes, I understand the fire station is for the town. I'm not obtuse to that. However, as a person who builds here in this town, I could never get you to change zoning bylaws to suit the build for me. I would be required to go get a variance. And if the abutters voted against my variance, I would just be out of luck. I would just own a lot that I couldn't build on. And I would have zero recourse. So I have a real problem with doing this because it suits the town's needs. But when it is something that would suit my needs as a developer, as a builder, I would be told to go pound sand, and too bad. And that is where I have a problem. As you know, you and I have had this conversation in the past based on the last project that I did. It should not matter who you are. I should not have to use my position on advisory board or who I know in this town to get things done. And yet I have had to continuously do that to get anything done here. And that is a huge, huge problem for me. I don't think I should be given any special special privileges here just because I know people. And yet that's exactly what's happening. Because we support the fire station, we are now saying, hey, let's go change our zoning bylaws to help this project along. I don't like that.
But I think that, I mean, I appreciate the passion on that, but it feels like putting it before the full town meeting, 2/3 of the people have to approve this, right? So we're not asking for a special, we're asking the town to vote for this special thing, not a board of appeals. So.
But the planning board would never do this for anyone
No,
else.
but
That's my problem.
yes, Michael's point is that if it goes down, they have another option.
Well, if it goes down, your only choice will be the variance.
Right, and they've already.
Well,
That is a reason to not try it, if people are supportive of it, which I am at this point.
so the town in terms of making some changes, there is a history of the town making zoning adjustments in terms of to a benefit of for potential private investment from a developer.
We're doing an Article 12.
Yeah.
There's
No,
one.
no kidding. This is the first time I've seen it since I've been on the board.
Well,
I've been on the
and-
advisory board, which is what, 4 years now, almost 5 years. I've never seen us do it to suit one specific individual builder, developer, or resident. So,
But
right, these two, no, these two back to back. You know, I guess, yeah, right. It doesn't
I could-
matter. Support the
I
fire
understand.
station. So let me just make that clear. I support the fire station. I will be voting for the fire station 100%. And it's not that I don't support this need. I do. It's more of the big picture that I have a problem with. I have yeah, okay, I'm good.
Well, I mean, I did open up with just to let you know, there are special setbacks, exceptions to library and town hall within the B1, which are both public facilities. So it's not as if some zoning, when this was crafted, they took that into account.
Again, I think it's more of just the raising the point that I can tell you that I would not want to see this again. If this were to ever happen again, I would probably vote no based on principle. This is the fire station and we've all put a lot of time and effort and work into getting this done. It's been, I would hate to see that go down in flames, but I'm making it very clear that this is not something, a habit I would want to see from the planning board in general. Changing
So there-
bylaws to suit certain people.
Susan? So just, because I'm a lunatic.
Yeah.
I agree with you. This is goofy and it's a workaround and it's to benefit a single applicant. I go the other way though, than you do actually. Well, this is a public utility. I think it's appalling that the state can get away with anything they want regardless of zoning, and town, you have to go through this dance. When you're trying to do a police station over, in Sharon Ave, you're trying to do town hall. We had to change some of the zoning to do the town hall we built 25 years ago.
I'd be much more in support of you putting forth a zoning bylaw change that says municipal buildings don't have to follow these rules. That's what I would rather see than, do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you're a municipal building or you're a public safety building, let's have it in the bylaws that you aren't subject to these things. That I would get behind. You know what I'm saying? But just changing our zoning to suit someone or something bothers me, but it doesn't matter because I support the fire station, so I'm not going to say no to it. I just wanted to make my point clear. That was all.
Okay.
So I think you'll get support from us. It's just could be an interesting town, could be an interesting
I mean,
article.
like Brian says, I think you're running it's a dangerous game with, if there are a group of people who are coming and have figured out that they can put a stick in the.
Haven't figured it out.
I know, yeah, we just told them. Watches these things. Have you ever looked at the views on YouTube? It's like 17. We get like 17 views on YouTube.
An important.
Yes, we are not clickbait for anyone. Okay, does anyone have any
Well, I think-
questions on this?
Yeah, no, point taken. I think the thing, hopefully, and the planning board is going to work on have a little informational sheet for town meeting too. And they did discuss this. Actually, everything that you've talked about, they've discussed about it too. Appreciating the position. It's just that, like I mentioned before, we talked about a lot. The fact that you got to put evergreens next to a parking lot, next to a fire station is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so the fact that that requirement even exists is really.
I think it would not, I think you should keep your application for variance.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I get it. Oh, and the application of variance is still,
That's actually the bylaw you should be looking to change.
You step into it. Because if the bylaw doesn't work, change it, but don't exempt pieces from it.
Yeah.
I apologize, but you really just stepped into it there and just let's walk away.
I think you should look into applying, I think you should look into.
The signing bylaw, it's a safe argument that's been made for other things. We got to step away from it and look at the bylaw. But
Exactly. You, part of the stuff that Bob was working on was, which I understand, obviously, we all know were pulled, but it's 48 articles to change the language and clean up the grammar and update certain things. Well, how about taking a look at stuff like this? Like we said, municipal buildings and public safety buildings should be exempt from all of this anyway. Why not put forth a bylaw that says that? Within reason. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you see these red flags, instead of trying to come up with a workaround, let's just put forth that as a zoning bylaw change instead of this. You see what I'm saying? Instead of saying, let's change the map, how about we say they're not beholden, I guess is the best word, beholden to this.
We used to have a zoning bylaw study committee, which would meet and talk about things like this with normal citizens and town board members, and that would actually.
That needs to be reinstated. For sure. That would be a good one, instead of getting surprised with 48 articles at town meeting. Okay, does anybody else have anything on the zoning map?
No.
Questions on the zoning map?
No.
They voted, they approve it. So, all right.
C4.
Article 12, C4. What you got? I mean, I know you voted yes, but what was your discussion? Anything we need to know? Any changes?
No, there wasn't any changes. If I can screen share, I could just show you the zoning map real quick if you want, just to see the location and what was discussed.
Yeah, while Rich is pulling that up, this is Chad Peckman, Planning Board. We discussed having handouts for both these articles at town meeting. And on Article 12, which Rich is showing you now, we will have a map that shows the C4 district. So we know, so everybody knows exactly where it is and what it covers. So there's no guessing, I guess you could say.
Everything in purple is the current C4.
Yes.
And it would change everything in the C4, but where you're talking about the location is the far right corner.
No, far.
It's
Oh,
like
the top.
yeah,
one,
it's
the
like the
top middle?
upper, yeah.
The upper middle, okay. I thought it was to the right.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Am I turned around?
Orient this a little bit.
Oh, maybe I'm turned around.
So Holbrook's the one that goes
Right,
crosswise.
right. 115's going up and down. Holbrook's going left, right.
But
This
Yeah, we'll
bottom
put,
right here.
we'll put, in the diagram that we put, or the map that we put on the handout, we'll have the street names.
backs up against the power.
Just,
Okay, that's,
This is over.
Yeah.
okay. So I'm right, I'm just upside down. It's the corner of Holbrook and 115.
Right, no, back up, right. Keep going, right there.
It's the corner of Holbrook and 115. I just had, it's just, I'm envisioning it this way, and that's why I was. Okay.
Other residential. Over 55 is also included, in this, which is what we need for a minute.
Yeah.
But
It's running in an opposite odd way of how you would normally picture a map. That is the power line that runs horizontally.
I think the map's oriented north-south, is it not, Rich?
This is north-south.
Yeah.
That's not how.
That's how we read that.
That's not how I would look at that. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. That's not how I drive down like.
that little yellow line.
I think we're good now. Like,
Yeah.
we're-
Up the curb and then come in.
So the only question I have, the power line has some sort of,
Commercial building where Aaron's want to do.
like,
They
we're
want-
going to do development under the power lines, I would assume.
Yeah.
And then the stuff on the rest, to the rest of the development, is that have any restrictions, or is that also developable under C4?
That would-
Yeah, that part. There.
Well,
I don't know what that is.
Where your cursor just was.
Rich is on mute.
Rich, you're muted.
Oh, and now it's back. The map is gone.
Can you hear me?
Now,
So
yeah, we
those-
can hear you, but we lost the share.
All right, let me go back to,
Those parcels were the well and land that's owned by the power company.
Okay, thank you.
Where
You're
your
muted
cursor
again,
is
Rich.
right now, none of that is developable. Sorry, I can't speak.
Rich, you're muted again.
Jesus. Maybe are you muted when you screen share?
No.
No, okay.
So that portion that he was pointing to, that was the area of the well. And then the other parcels down to the bottom left, that was the power company.
Okay. Does anybody know what this is right here?
And the rink is C4?
No.
What is this?
Yeah,
It's outside.
that's wet, it's wetlands.
So it.
no, the rink is B3.
Developable lot.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the only area that is developable in the whole C4, correct? That's
Yeah.
not already developed. It's the last
Yeah, the other-
remaining spot.
The other properties are the utility companies. Properties and then
And the
River's Edge and Pin Oaks
And wetlands.
and wetlands. And the trout, no, gaming club.
They're not in that though, are they?
Yeah, they're over here along Rockwood Road.
You're not
Can't see
sharing
it.
again, Rich. Whenever you stop the share,
What the heck?
whenever you mute and unmute, the share goes in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
So
weird.
I'll stop sharing, but so the trout owns property along Rockwood Road by the power lines.
Mhm.
Did you hear that or no?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So this would allow age-restricted apartments on the second floor of a building anywhere in this zone.
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
Floor has an apartment on it.
No.
I mean, commercial, I'm sorry, yeah. So conceivably, you know, at River's Edge, they could tear down a couple of houses, build a couple of convenience stores and put apartments on top of them.
Could happen, yep.
Theoretically, yep.
That was my thing. We're not talking about they do it now, but in 20 years, somebody could come in and do that. Because we've
That's
just changed the rules. Okay. As long as we're all okay with that. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Justin, maybe this is to you, because it's in the town administrator comment section here, but just to everyone. It
I
says
can't hear
this
the
would
question.
allow- It would allow each dwellings above the ground floor, so long as the ground floor first contains business or commercial uses. I just want to understand what that really means. When it says it first must contain business or commercial uses, does that specifically mean there's a shell of the building, right? Whatever extent necessary to, I don't know, get an occupancy certificate, whatever it may be, but there's no lease, there's no business, there's no electricity inside. I don't know, whatever it may be. Does that meet this criteria of there is first commercial activity, or does it mean that there's an actual commercial activity happening where it's leased, there's business, there's actual commercial operations going in? Is there a definition of what we specifically mean by that?
So what you're asking is, you want I guess what you're asking is for clarification on, do you have a signed lease for retail or commercial on the first floor before you can sign a lease to a residence upstairs?
Yes, I'm asking specifically, what does it mean by it first contains business or commercial usage? Is that just from a building structure perspective, or is it from a operating perspective? Because again, we have an example in town. The old gas station, if I'm not mistaken what that was, that certainly has commercial on the first floor, that in the 20 years that thing has existed, there's no one stepped foot in that first floor as I can tell. So I'm just trying to understand what does it mean here by it first contains business or commercial usage?
This is the same issue we raised in the B1 committee meetings before, which is how do we guarantee when we allow mixed use buildings that they're not doing it just to get apartment complexes into the area? How do we guarantee that there will actually be commercial development that benefits the whole town instead of just a gym or a laundromat that suits only their people who are living in that apartment complex?
If even that.
Yeah, or actually nothing, which is what we have right now. We have on the corner of Main Street, we have nothing. And I.
Well, this is, I know Bob, interpretation is zoning, but it's constructed. Constructed for business or commercial uses prior to the resident occupancy, so.
But that's already what happened on Main Street.
So we don't need to belabor this anymore. I think we probably all know where we're going with this, but my request would be for town meeting. My ask is we should be really specific as to what we mean by that. Do we mean they can just build it, and if no one moves in, like, too bad, so sad, right? Or are there other occupancy and usage requirements other than just by virtue of the building being there, we say, well, you've met the obligation? I would ask that we be very specific with what we mean by the ground floor first contains, because people will read that or hear that and presume, oh, well, first there's going to be a business there. And I don't believe that that's what this means at all. I think I don't think the bylaw here says anything like that. It just says, well, as long as it's been constructed, well, that's good enough for us. So without belaboring it, I would just ask that we be specific at town meeting and inform people what they're deciding on, because I think in the past, people would jump to a lot of conclusions about all the wonderful businesses that will be there and vote yes for this, and then unfortunately be surprised if nothing ever came from it.
Can you add language instead of just saying first? Can you say that a commercial lease must be signed before you can exceed 75% of your residential fulfillment? You can't fulfill more than 75% of your residential until you have a commercial business leased in the bottom.
So that, I would think that would be outside the scope of this. article the way it's written to be able to do that.
Well,
I mean, it's also a chicken and the egg situation.
So, exactly what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid that. So we should be writing the zoning article that we want to see. And what we want to see is in situations where we're allowing mixed use buildings, we want to see that the commercial is developed either at the same rate or in advance of the residential. I mean, I think that's what we're saying. So language that adheres to that, you should say that.
Like I'd settle for even if the commercial came after the fact, so long as it came. Right, again, the one example I think we have to point to, it's never come, and I think that was built in like 2002.
I think you can't control that, say, a restaurant goes in and then a restaurant goes out of business and leaves, and then the market is dry and he can't rent it. There's nothing you can do. But I think at least initially, you can say, you, the developer, cannot sell, rent, or occupy more than 75% of its residential units until the commercial side has been fulfilled. That's not that hard to do. That's a straight number. We're not saying that, hey, the lease fell through a year later and he already rented it. We're not going back and we're not suing them. We're just saying that that should be part of the zoning bylaw change. If we're going to allow it, then let's allow it, but let's allow it with a caveat so that we don't run into what we ran into the first time around. Go ahead, Cheers.
Thank you. Chat and group, has there been a public hearing about this? And forgive my ignorance.
Yeah, we had a public hearing last night.
And what was the consensus of the Rivers Edge residents?
There was, to the best of my knowledge, there was nobody in the audience and no one on the Zoom call.
Okay.
I don't know about YouTube streaming.
So no one showed up.
Correct.
No.
Thank you.
That's, that is what it is. Is there any way to phase this? And I'm sorry, but, I'm gonna show my age. When this development was built, it was built in phases and the phases were released based on conditions. And they held up the last couple of phases of residential construction until the commercial building was built. And that was an actual, that he came to the meeting and said, he came to the planning board and said, I'd like phase 3 or 4 released. They said, not until you build a commercial building. And that's when he built the commercial building, and he wasn't gonna build it unless they told him to do that. Is there any way that this can be done now? That you need to build the commercial, I mean, you can build the building out, but you don't get occupancy permits for the second floor and the third floor until you've got occupancy permits on the first floor. Is there any way that can be built into this?
Not into this.
So
It would have
not
to.
within the bylaw, but in the permitting process, the board can just.
That's where it occurred, but it was literally a threat to the developer that you're not going any further until you build your building.
That was conditions of a special permit.
No, he came before the planning board
Right.
and said, I want to get phase 4 released.
Right, the special permit was phased. We're talking about doing the bylaw change. It's not written in the bylaw that way. You don't see anywhere in the bylaw.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to.
That would only work if they were applying for a permit.
So they're gonna have to apply, if this goes through, they're gonna have to apply to modify their permit to allow this to
Understand, but
allow
then
a mix-
then that's up to each individual planning board, which, as you know, over time, the planning board changes, the people on the planning board change, and so does the consensus of the planning board and the vision of the planning board. I think it's important to have it, if you're talking about making a zoning bylaw change, make it say what you want it to say. If this is the intent, if the intent is for us to develop commercially, then make it say so. We never do this. This was my problem with, this is my issue with B1. This is my issue with a lot of things. We talk about it. We assume that everyone's going to do the right thing. We have to stop assuming that. We need to write it in the bylaw what we want to see. And if we want to see that the commercial side is developed first to the conclusion, if need be, of the residential part, then that's what we write. So however you want to word it, 75%, 50%, 100%, I don't care, but somehow it needs to be worded in there that you cannot fulfill your entire residential capacity until you have developed your commercial side. If we are talking about allowing you to have mixed use, we don't have to do this. We don't have to do this for them at all. That section is zone commercial. If we want to, we can be total not nice people, I forget when I'm on camera, and say, no, tough shit. You have to develop commercial because that's what it's zoned for. But that's not what we're doing. He's asking us for a favor. He's asking us to allow mixed use. We'd love to see more commercial developed there, so we're agreeing to allow it. So put in the bylaw what we want to see. Well, we want to see commercial developed first. That's what we want. So write it in there. Write it in there. Go ahead.
So I would say that the planning board tried to do that in that they wrote, you have to build the business or commercial use. You have to construct it. So
Where does it say that?
and so look at C, right? So the actual language going into the bylaw is this part in black, bold, C, residential dwelling units, blah, 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 provided that the ground floor is constructed for and limited to business or commercial uses prior to residential occupancy. So they've got to build out the commercial space. I'm not so sure I'm hot on the idea of holding them hostage to them finding tenants. Like, so unless your intent is wrong, you don't want to build an empty space on your ground floor, particularly this guy who's got a whole development. It's not a vacant space. It is bad for him. So he's going to build and then he's going to get tenants, and the private market will determine whether or not he gets tenants. I'm not sure I'm that comfortable with the bylaw saying, no, you have to be successful on the commercial side, or else you can never have this residential.
Here.
I understand
Absolutely.
that this developer wouldn't do that, but we all know there are developers that would.
But you also got to understand from a business side, a business isn't going to want to go into a building that doesn't have tenants that's supposed to have tenants, because then they don't understand what the traffic flow is going to really ultimately end up looking like. There's a lot of studies that go into locating a business appropriately. Granted, in this situation, we've already got built-in residents and, you know, the development that's already there.
They have a captive audience of X number of occupied rooms. The 3 apartments on the second floor are not going to make a break.
This is the chicken or the egg. You can make the same, no, you can make the same argument in the reverse, which is the residents don't want to move into a building that is going to not have the restaurant that they were promised. So either way, it's the same argument. I think putting in something that says without, you can even put it to be vague. You can say without proper due diligence to rent 75% or more of your residential. I don't care how it's worded. I think it just needs to be in there. If that's what we're going for, if our goal is the commercial aspect of it, and we're only changing it because this developer owns it and says that he cannot build the commercial unless he can also do residential and refuses, and we're going to say, okay, we'll do this for you because we want to see the commercial, we need to have some caveats in there.
So it also begins to build a dangerous precedent for other zones as well, though.
I think that there's, I'm going to refer to 2 examples in town, right? And I'm not a development expert, but we have 2 examples to look at in town, in my history here. One is the old gas station / new apartment building on the corner of Main and Boardman. Exact same situation. Commercial on the first floor, residences on the higher floors. There's never been a commercial in there. So I disagree with the statement of there's no situation on earth where a developer would ever build a building with a commercial first floor, and why wouldn't they rent it? Like, that makes no sense. We have one example in town that has followed the anti of that argument for 20 years at this point. So that's one example in town. The other example I want to raise is when we had this discussion for B1, and it was all the exact same things. It'll be mixed use, it'll be commercial on the first floor, it'll be residential on the higher. And when all the studies were done, I remember very specifically, we were told to go look at Dedham Town Center. Dedham Town Center is the example, it's the exemplar development that we're looking to bring into the B1 community. And why don't you all go look at, I forget who the consultant was, but there was a very big presentation all about Dedham Town Center. Dedham Town Center is a wasteland on the ground floor. Zero, right? I mean, I don't know what, that's probably not fair to say, but
Probably not zero,
it's
but
probably not zero, but it's closer to zero than it is closer to 50% occupied, and has been that way for a very long time. So I'm only, again, not a professional developer, never built anything myself, right? I'm just going by the examples that have been presented to us in this town, right? For this type of mixed use. And then the one that we pointed to in a different town that we wanted to model ourselves after, and they've both been failures. Both of them have been failures. So I just want to say, I'm just trying for us to learn from the example that when we give these variances, the whole purpose of this, I think, from the town's benefit, not the developer's benefit, but the town's benefit, is to incentivize commercial development. We don't need to incentivize any more apartments, right? We've got scale and growth problems out the wazoo for bringing in more high density housing. The benefit to us as a community is to incentivize more commercial development. The two examples that we've been presented, again, one being in Dedham, so not to say we've suffered through that here, but neither of those examples have gone the way that all the developers and variances and things say they would. So forgive me, but it's falling a little bit on deaf ears of why would the developer on earth ever want to, develop commercial space and then not rent it. Is all the examples that we've had, that's exactly what's happened.
Based on the project that this specific developer did on Union Street, I have no real reservations about him personally. But we are talking about putting a zoning bylaw change into effect for the next however many years. And I don't care about the argument that he's the only one that owns land in the C4 and it only pertains to the C4, because that is what is the situation today. That is not the situation in 15 years. That will not be the situation in 10 years. We are talking about a building that was constructed when I moved here. I haven't lived here that long. So it can happen. It can absolutely happen that this is going to change hands over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. So you are talking about making a zoning bylaw change. It should be as restrictive as we want it to be. It shouldn't be, oh, let's just give it so this developer can build. No, we're changing it for him because it is a benefit to the town to develop that spot. But we need to write the language that we want to see. That's my.
They're not going to be able to change before town meeting, so we have to go up with them.
Yeah. So Susan, I'm curious of what you mean by 15 years from now, if this building's still there, are you saying that if there's no commercial on the first floor, like everybody moves out, that you then have to vacate all the apartments up above?
No, we're only talking about, because all zoning laws
you're talking about initial construction
process. And we're not even talking about occupied. We're talking about you cannot lease out 100% of your residential, at least initially, which is when the zoning comes into play.
Okay, so you're talking about the initial leases. All right.
Correct.
Okay.
Initial leases until your commercial has been developed. It doesn't even have to say your commercial has to be occupied. It just has to say that it has to be fully developed, not built, not a shell, not a structure, fully developed. That means wiring, electrical, plumbing, parking, all that stuff.
How are you going to put
That's
all
what
that
it
in
does
without
say.
knowing what the business is going to go there? But it says that electrical will be there. It's built for use, but.
Because, for example, the one on the corner of Main Street was constructed.
So let's put the Main Street thing out of mind. It is a single property owned by a particular person who maybe did not have total profit motivation in what he was doing. He wanted a particular thing. He didn't get that particular thing, right? He wanted a very specific, I think, kind of commercial development. He had dreams about certain kinds of restaurants. He was never able to do that. All right. That's a single incident. This developer has a multitude of uses in the commercial he already has on the site. He's got a good locus of customers who are upper income, because Lord knows I can't afford to live over there. You know, so I very close. I mean, I don't know if there's a market for apartments for over 55s in Norfolk, but.
I mean, I think so the space does have to be constructed, the commercial space, so it's not, it's short of an occupancy permit, but it's.
Let me ask one question, very basic question. We've been asked to make a bylaw change because that's what a developer wants, so that it becomes commercially viable. What are we getting in exchange for this favor we're giving to them?
So if he builds something similar, comparable to what's next door to Town Hall, you've got about $2.6 million of new taxable income coming into the town. On top of.
It's that 2 point, that's gonna be like a 10-year or something, yeah.
No, that's the building.
Not
18 Union Street is 2,637,000. That's the valuation right now.
Yeah, valuation, that's not income, Richard, it's, you know, $16 per thousand or whatever.
Well, do it. So it's 15, I don't know, was it, $50,000
So,
in revenue?
I mean, limited services, no schools.
Right.
Do apartments inherently help towards 10%?
Yes, all
Yes.
apartments.
They might not have to put any, they're not gonna get.
There's no affordable.
If there's not-
If it's apartments, they all count towards affordable.
There will
Well,
have to be
not
one. The new
just a-
bylaw change from last time, there's no option for zero now.
Yeah.
One is the lowest.
Correct.
No, well, 6 is the lowest, but
6 and below, you're still not at zero. You still have to do one.
Red zero, red zero,
I thought there was
Zero.
no option for zero.
red zero.
no, it starts at 6.
6 on the second.
So there will be zero.
Right. Union Street has 8.
It's a smaller space.
What is? Union Street has 8.
Right, but that was before the bylaw got changed.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong from the B1. It's been 3 years. How many units does the Union Street building have? 8, right?
8.
The first floor.
No, 8
No.
residential. And four businesses on the bottom or 3 businesses on the bottom? The
I think
bank,
there's 4.
the dance, and there's one other thing at least, right? Because there's the
Yes.
dance and there's something across from the dance and then the bank is in the back. So there's 3 commercial spaces and 8 apartment units. And
I
it's
think there's
within
an
the
office on the
35,
second floor.
45 feet. So they should be able to get at least 8 in this area as well, depending on what this is.
I think we have.
Give or take, so it will be, so when that was built, it was under the 10%, 10 units or more, so it was less than 10, so there was 0 affordable. This is under the new bylaw, which
Should be at
is,
least one, but if it's an
At least-
apartment, don't all of them count towards our
No.
affordable number?
no,
Only 40.
Okay, never mind, he's not building a 40B, okay.
right,
Apartments do. In apartments, it's not just your 10%,
In a 40B,
all of them count towards your number, but.
not just the 20% or whatever it is.
Exactly. All right,
for 40B, so, yeah.
So we get the marginal value increase of the property for tax purposes between what a commercial space would be and a mixed use space.
except our tax rate, we don't have a split tax rate in Norfolk, so it's the same. So it's a
But I mean,
valuation of 2.6 million.
So it's like 40 grand.
16% of 16.3% of 2.6 million.
So if I do my rough math, I think that's the amount that Mr. Garrity wanted to put in the stabilization fund, right? $50,000.
Well. Any more questions? I'm thoroughly annoyed now. No joke. All right,
I hate to ask.
go ahead.
I hate to do it, but I'll kill me if I don't. Do we know what the cost to the town is from a fire, ambulance, all those kinds of things, water, infrastructure, admin? for the $40,000 that we get from that Union Street building. It's not zero. So I just think if we're gonna throw out the benefit of the town being 40,000, I think we ought to at least understand what the outlay is to support that size building or development. So at least we can evaluate this fairly based on what is the true income to the town as opposed to the magical number that is not real.
And we're asking for 0 concessions from the developer. To
So we
concede
can
on our
look,
own.
so the water, they'll pay for it, like everybody else water use it through their water usage, through the.
Right, no, I mean, just whatever it is that obviously fire, police services.
Roads.
We get all that.
Ambulance money.
English. You're gonna get in trouble for saying that.
No, I mean, so services, so police, it's, look, 6 more units is not a demonstrable strain on the police department.
55 hours.
A drain on the police force.
Okay.
If there are ambulance services, they are remunerated. If it's water, it's remunerated. And, we don't plow his lots, so it's not like we're gonna pay for plowing for parking.
The snow budget for Riverside.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys.
We don't know, but you're saying it's reasonably close to zero for this type of.
I would assume it's, it's, the technical term is bug dust.
It's
Very little.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it. No one has any more questions for them, right? Okay. Thank you so much for
Appreciate the
coming.
time. Have a good night.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Good
As
night.
always.
Right.
The Concom article,
The what?
the Concom article,
Concom, yeah.
You're talking about that.
We already talked,
it's off, is it?
yeah. Didn't we vote on it?
No, we didn't, if I may.
Yes.
We didn't vote on it because Concom, and Justin, you can confirm this for me, please. I spoke with Caitlin and they have still not heard from town council regarding the rewriting of the article. And I believe that they're going before the select board on the 18th.
You're absolutely right. However, town council did get back to me today.
They did, okay.
Their recommendation was to continue with the language of certificate of mailing. I can say specifically why, because I wasn't expecting that question. Will you give me one moment, please? I know, I saw it just before I went to my fire station building committee. They may recommend keeping that language.
Probably because it's on the official way to prove that.
They mentioned something like that. I've got to find.
It's better than a selfie by the mailbox.
I'm just thinking the exact same, right?
You have a list of what we have not yet voted on. If you pull that up so that it's on the project.
On my phone, it doesn't pop up, but I will send it this evening, send you the reasoning behind it.
Okay.
There was a comment on the side, and for some reason, it's not popping up on my phone.
So the verbiage and language will stay the
It will stay the
same
same.
as it's printed in front of us.
It will, yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So last week. we voted on one. Fire alarm.
And we IP two, right? IP one. Oh, sorry.
2, we wait for the day before.
Although
They gave us two.
They said it's subject to change up till the day before.
Right.
Right.
so we'll vote on it.
Okay,
When you say vote on it, the meeting, what do you mean by that?
we meet an hour before.
And vote on that one.
Before town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on what Todd says.
So our recommendation that gets printed in the warrant says that due to the unforeseen nature of unpaid, not unpaid bills, of budget of transfers, we wait until.
Okay. I want to make sure of that because after this meeting, I want to talk about the language and the timelines on that. So you add language and we're specifically saying we're delaying the.
Yeah,
Okay. great,
you should
thank
have copies of the
Yeah,
last
just
year's
the
warrant.
previous one, yeah.
Yeah, just pull up last spring's warrant. Well, no, it wouldn't be last spring's, it would be last fall's warrant. And
We'll talk about it.
it should be there. Okay, so 2, we're waiting I'll take a motion on 3 if we're ready, if there's no further discussion.
I vote to approve Article 3 as written.
Second.
Roll. We have to do roll call?
No, we're all.
In favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously.
Sign while we're doing this or not?
Uh,
Want to sign while we go? A sign while we go?
Who's writing?
Oh, yeah, I'll do it at the end. I'll just get this. I'm gonna just get through this that way. All right, Article 3 is funding from collective bargaining. Do we even have that?
That's what we just did.
We just did that.
Oh,
That's
we-
what we just did.
Oh, we are, that's right. Sorry. Apologies, I'm behind one. I was on Article 2. Article 4, capital expenditures from borrowing. That was the short list. No, that's a short list up here, right?
No, this is mine, so there's, I think we have nothing.
I vote, I make a motion to indefinitely postpone.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Article 5, this is the big one from capital, sorry.
Vote to approve Article 5 as presented,
Second.
So this one doesn't change.
No,
unless you want.
if you'd like to oppose it, you vote no, you certainly can.
Now, we'll just move them right now.
It is open for discussion if there's something. If there's something we didn't,
We can, I got it. I just.
we can ask him to take things out if we wanted to and hold our vote for now. And
That's two different things.
Yes. I-
Can you amend it and vote on the amendment, and that's now the article?
no.
Okay,
What
that's
I'm
what I'm.
saying is if right now, he has not finalized, this technically could still change.
No, I can't.
We are saying he can, I'm saying we can sign on this tonight.
Different list. Our list is bad.
She's talking about the capital list, and the capital list is not changing. Right.
Listen, what I'm trying to say to Rob is, as a board, if we say to Justin, we really have a problem with number 7, he can choose to take number 7 out.
I get that.
Then we can vote on it.
Mhm.
Okay, but once we vote on it, he can't change it for a town meeting unless it's done on town meeting floor in front of him.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. We do have that power to say to him, we'd like you to remove this. He doesn't have to listen to us, but we can say that.
Yep.
And if he says, no, I'm not changing it, then we can say, well, we're IPing it, we're voting no, or we're taking no position. And that is the recourse that we have. That's it. But we can't actually make any changes to this. Okay, 8, Board of Assessors, this is the 22. Jesus Christ, how did we?
Where do you want?
Because all my other ones had check marks. Sorry.
I vote to approve, I move to approve Article 5 as presented. Second.
Okay,
Voice. Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Anyone abstaining?
Present.
Okay, with one abstention and it passes. Okay, I could see that in your face. Would you like to share with us why you're abstaining?
Let's,
No, okay. Article 6, we already did. Article 7, we already did. Article 8 is the Board of Assessors with the clause 22G that was very nicely explained. Do you have any further issues now that it's been
I
explained?
do, like, on a principal thing, I think you either take a tax benefit of creating a trust, or you take the tax benefit that's there. I don't think we need to give people both, but that's me.
Well, I would say the tax benefit of a trust only helps you when you're dead.
Correct.
And this tax benefit helps you when
You're alive.
you are alive and
Yeah.
probably. You don't, I mean, it doesn't help the owner of the house to have it in the trust. It helps the descendants.
Well, kind of.
I also, conservatorships include in this, going through a situation where I had my father who, was non-compos mentis. I think, that opens up that process as well. So I support this because, they're not doing this isn't a dodge. This is someone who you need to make other plans for.
But it can be a dodge, and it can be a good system.
make a motion to approve Article 8 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah.
Okay, one abstention, please, Erica, but it passes. Article 9. Street acceptances, this is Noon Hill. This is the little adjunct. Anyone have any issues with this we need to discuss before we vote? Nope. Okay, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve Article 9 as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Article 10, this is the Fox Run Street acceptances. Any discussions? No, okay. Make a motion, please.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, all opposed? All right, planning board, this is 11, this is the strip of land. Any discussion before I take a motion? All right, I'll take a motion on Article 11.
Move to approve Article 11.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call vote, please. If you would like to abstain, say abstained. If you approve, aye. If you do not, say nay, please. Mikey,
Aye.
Brian Beachkowski,
Aye.
Jonathan Hurwitz,
Aye.
Joyce Terrio,
As much as I support the fire station, I'm voting no on this.
Rob Garrity,
Aye.
David Lutz.
Aye.
Kiara Moore.
Aye.
Susan Klein, I am also voting no. I am voting no on principle. Let me make that clear because I 100% support the fire station. I do not support changing zoning bylaws for this reason. Article 12. So that passes, but with 2 no's. The split, not a split vote, but
6 to 2.
Article 12. If there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion on Article 12.
Just for one point of clarification,
Yeah.
our recommendation doesn't need a 2/3 majority. Otherwise, we're within one vote of actually.
Yeah. No, it's just more so that people can see that we did not have a consensus. I think it's important for people to see when we disagree, when we don't have a consensus, because, you know, it might make them pay attention and notice, oh, wait, this might be something they need to look at, because the advisory board didn't just rubber stamp. I think it's important for that reason. Article 12, C4 zoning. Anyone have any
Yes.
questions before I take the motion?
My primary, it's a complicated, I don't know enough about this stuff, like to understand the implications, but my primary thing is the board, I feel like the board went through its due diligence, and they sought input, which they didn't get, but that's kind of where I put my trust in the fact, just because we've heard from them twice now. So that's where I'm leaning towards yes, just for that reason, but.
Okay.
I
I
don't have a command of all of the, necessarily all the intricacies of this.
through all the discussion, all the reasons to make this change always came back to it's for the developer. And no one really answered what the town gets out of it at all, other than increased tax revenue. And I'm against it because I don't think we should do zoning for the developer. It should be in the purpose of the town's goals. And there has never been, we actually need mixed use in this place. It's just, we need it to get a developer.
We did say that this is a mixed use development. But it's not in the same
Right.
building.
We don't need a mixed use building.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
I will take a motion to either approve it or to vote. Oh,
I
sorry.
just want to say, this one actually troubles me less than the fire department one. Because it will impact the entire zoning district. I know it looks like a change for one landowner wants to do a specific thing, but let's not be kidding ourselves. We do that all the time.
That bothers me less than requiring the commercial to be developed first. That's bothers me the most.
And see, I don't think you can achieve that in the bylaw. I think you can achieve that in the permits. Achieving in the bylaw is really difficult. And Brian, I figure I go on the other side of, why doesn't the town need to get something to give a right? Mine is the town needs to explain why they have to take my right to do this housing. So, that's why I'm a reluctant yes.
Yeah, I agree with that in principle. My issue is actually with the planning board doesn't have a plan. And they can't articulate why there should be one way or the other than the developer wants it. My issue is with the board more than the change, and they continue to put forward zoning changes with no justification and no plan of the direction it's gonna go.
Which is why you need a master plan update. Which is what we argued for last year.
Yes.
Some of us.
I don't have a problem with a master plan. I have a problem spending so much money on the master plan at a time when you were making budget cuts. I understand.
I would move the motion. I don't know if it's a second.
I'll second.
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Voting in favor or voting against? Because you have to make the motion for which way you want to
I
vote.
was moving, yeah, the motion to,
Approve.
Yeah.
Okay. So a motion to approve Article 12. I'm also going to take a roll call vote on this one. Sorry, guys. Oh, sorry, was that second? You seconded it, right?
Yeah.
Rob already seconded it. Motion to approve. So vote yes if you agree, vote no if you don't, abstain, etc. Mikey,
yes.
Brian Beachkowski,
No.
Jonathan Hurwitz,
No.
Kara Moore, abstain. Joyce Terrio,
No,
Rob Garrity.
Yes.
David Lutz.
Why am I going on?
You're not, I'm going last.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting no. So 1, 2,
I
3
make a-
no's. 1,
3 yeses.
2, 3 yeses.
I did not say yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, you
1, 2, 3. Yes.
Did not fail, right?
failed. 1, 2, 3. Did you vote no?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so 4. 4 fails. Thank you.
I'm
Sorry, we just did it twice in a row and I couldn't.
All right.
I'm gonna make a motion to not approve the article it's written, because you can't, that's not an automatic no, you actually have to make a
You
motion.
make recommendation, you can't make recommendations on amendment. We can present them on town floor if you want to come up.
No, I'm saying the advisory board, I make a motion that the advisory committee's position is a no on this article.
So that would be an IP, right?
No. Oh, no.
I think we just voted no.
I think we voted no. So I think no.
We voted down the motion to approve. We did not make a motion to.
That's done. Jay will say, when when he asks the advisory board person, so whoever's writing this up
Mhm.
to present it, when they get up, they make the motion to disapprove.
The advisory board voted not to approve.
We didn't. That's my point.
We did.
No, we didn't.
Our job, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our job on town meeting floor and when we send out the warrant
Yeah.
is to give our recommendation.
Yes,
The consensus can be written
yes.
that 4 members of the advisory board felt in favor of the warrant of the article as written
Yep.
and as presented. And the recommendation in the comment section can also indicate there was a split vote or
Yes.
whatever. And it isn't until we're on town meeting floor how we present the article.
That's right. I'm
But
sorry,
we
I
are
think
the
I'm not
ones
explaining
make-
myself.
We
right.
make the motion.
It's
So we are making a negative motion.
It's a
on that.
procedural issue that I have.
We have the semantics of what we voted on,
Right.
which is, I put a motion to approve it, that failed, so do you need a motion to deny it, which I don't think.
Yes.
That's not been.
Or you can give an IP. So we
No,
need.
we have voted no on it.
Which in theory is a motion to IP on
No,
town meeting.
it's a vote against it.
Yeah.
IP is like, IP is the point, no, hold on. They like to say a no and an IP are the same. They're
It's not.
But we have to make a motion.
Like, we're gonna get up with you.
We have to make a motion on town floor.
No. An IP has to be overcome. You have to vote to replace the IP thing. And then you vote on the article. There's 2 votes. Right. You throw away the IP and then you vote on the article. Would we just voted no? Is it now?
The article not get approved, well, we are.
Yes.
We're not.
So shouldn't we make that an IP?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like
Not the same.
I need to get clear. This rarely happens. We rarely vote things down.
So let's just get.
I believe that we make the rest, I believe from what I understand in past years, we make a recommendation on town floor. So we stand up and say, the advisory board votes or recommends approval of this article. And then we make the motion and then Jay asks for the hands to be raised, except we're not doing that this time. We're voting no.
But I do think if the committee thinks that an IP vote is a better interpretation at town meeting for the reasons we've all raised, then maybe we should revote it as an IP.
Because there's no recommendation right now.
That's my point.
We voted
That's my point.
not to recommend to pass. There has to be a recommendation from the zone.
So,
What I was
so here's what.
Right.
So we first called for, Mike suggested a motion to approve. I am now going to open the floor for a motion in any way you want. If you want a motion to IP it, or if you want a motion to disapprove it. That's not the right verbiage, but you get what I'm saying, to vote no. So I'll take a motion.
I think it feels best with where I sit that we make a motion to IP it until the board has some plan for this town, in which case it is in alignment with development.
Second that.
Did you, was that your motion?
I guess I make a motion that we IP this to give the planning board time to show a way this is incorporated to the master plan.
Okay. It was seconded by Jonathan to IP it.
Yes.
So now I need to, you want to vote yes if you want to IP it, you are voting no if you do not want to IP it. And IP it is indefinitely postponed for those not aware. All right. Mikey,
Well, that's a reasonable motion. I don't think there wasn't a urgency to this, or was there? I mean, did you guys?
There's no urgency.
Yeah,
It's been blind for.
well, I guess I
He
support.
still has the opportunity. I'm sorry, Mike.
No,
He still has the opportunity in the C4 district to build his commercial building.
yes. Right,
correct.
yeah,
Can I ask one question on that, though? Like, I'll reverse all my previous arguments. Do they, if this doesn't pass, or if it's IP'd, can they build the building of their dreams that they want, which is commercial on the first floor and residential on the previous floors? However, to reverse it, they fully build out the commercial and rent it and sell it under those things, and then the shell is above it without an occupancy permit.
No, it's not mixed use right now.
Is that a big construction? It wouldn't be mixed use, it would just be commercial,
Like the building next.
and then there's nothing on the top.
Well, it would be offices or whatever.
Or not, they're walls.
Occupancy second floor of the current building.
No, but I'm saying if this didn't pass, you just build a shell.
Yeah, they
Then we
could.
do the opposite of what my fear is.
Yeah, they
Which
could.
is build the same exact building that he's talking about now.
No, he can't build 3 floors.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he can only build two
We're
floors.
giving him a floor for a 3rd floor.
Yep.
plus you might have a problem getting a building permit, because
I
they have to
would
tell you
like
what's
to
in
point out
there.
that I actually do want to IP this, and what I mean by that is I do want to indefinitely postpone versus just say straight saying no, because what I would like to see is better language in here. More restrictive language. If this is what they want, I need to see a master plan. I need to see what their vision is going forward, how they see it, and actually writing up a freaking zoning article that says more than one sentence in bold. Like we've got the ones that Bob was working on were 92 pages long. 92 pages long of talking about thee and them and there and stupid, excuse my language. And this, which actually affects our town and the vision of our town, is one sentence. Give me a break. Give me some more direction on this. That's my opinion. So I actually mean in postpone. I'm not saying no permanently. I'm saying postpone until you do a better freaking job of writing up the zoning change.
Okay, can I just ask one more
Yes.
question? So, because I think I'm still waiting to vote, right? So if we have a motion to indefinitely postpone, and whoever on this board is going to stand up and say, well, the committee discussed blah, 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 we'd like to see more, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and, okay, good. But then at the town meeting vote, but the town meeting vote is going to be on the indefinite postponement unless someone else in the town meeting.
Substitute.
They have to put down the IP first,
And then-
then they can take a motion, which actually just happened to us last year. We IP'd something and I think it was the planning board again.
I don't think all we're doing is making our recommendation. We're not changing the article.
No,
Anyway, no, I just, people don't have to vote down the IP. People, it'll still be a yes or no vote on the article.
Yeah, but the motion.
no, the motion would be to IP it.
Motion ID, that could be either agreed with, in which case we move on. It could be disagreed with, in which case the next motion could be to approve it. Or it could also be brought up for reconsideration.
It is more likely that we will vote to replace our recommendation with.
Move to amend.
So it's
We'll vote on the motion to replace our recommendation.
Okay.
Favorable vote.
I vote
Then it
yes.
will be the third vote.
You vote yes to IP it, okay.
Yeah.
Brian Bichkowski,
Yes.
I'm her Susan Klein, yes.
Yes.
Karen Moore, David Lutz, IP, you can say no if you want, I know you supported it. Fine. Yes, to IP it. I'm sorry. David, I didn't hear you.
David said yes.
Yes, to IP.
I said no.
I can hear you.
No.
No, yes, okay. It passes for IPing it with one no. Okay. I'd like to see some, oh wait, that was Article 12. We still need 13.
Article 13 is presented.
13 is the conservation. You got an answer, so should we go ahead and move forward or do we?
I second the motion unless it's already been done.
Okay, this is the wetlands with the certificate of mailings.
Joyce has it seconded.
Okay, Joyce seconded it. Mikey,
Yeah, yes.
Brian Bichkowski, Jonathan Hurwitz, Susan Klein, yes, Karen Moore, David Lutz,
Yeah.
Rob Garrity,
Yes.
Joyce Terrio. Yes. Okay, on unanimously. Okay, I would like,
Before we move on to other business.
oh, you may guess, say that you're not the clerk anymore.
No, no.
Oh.
Approve the minutes of our last meeting that I distributed. Motions for sure.
Let me assign these first, and then we're gonna do that last. Okay, so who has a handle on the three capital and budget? The three, yeah.
I'll do 3, 4, and 5.
Well, because budget transfers, we have none, so we're just waiting, and the other ones were IPs.
I have them in my computer.
All right, so you want to just do 1 through 5 all together?
We do have transfers, though.
Because 2 of them are IP, so there's recommendations right for those. All right, so David's doing those.
Is that 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Well, technically it's 1, but we don't have any unpaid bills, so that's IP'd. So you just write
3, 4, and 5. Who's doing 2 is my question.
whoever's doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
It's all the same.
Okay.
All the same.
Perfect.
All right, so then, David, you're all done with them, then you just take those and we'll get everything else.
Oh, no, I'm doing the one that I said I was gonna do.
Well, I think someone who voted no needs to do that one. Because
He ended up.
Voted for the IP, so.
no, but it needs to be something.
You do whatever.
I disagree.
Brian. Very well.
The ride sharing, anybody?
Easy one.
It's an easy one. Kara, you wanna? Okay, Kara's gonna do the ride sharing. I like to give her the super easy one. She's got any more. You're welcome. We don't need anything on 7 and the Board of Assessors. This is the veteran one. You abstained, so let's not pick him.
Jonathan voted no on something a couple of meetings ago and still made the president.
It's possible to do.
Yes, you did. Because you're
No, that was me.
well balanced.
I'll do the,
Oh, I didn't mean for you to do this.
no, but I gotta do one of them anyway.
Do you want the zoning ones or you want
No, I
the
don't.
veterans? Okay.
Or said next week that
No, that's,
I'm good on this.
okay. I need somebody to do the 2 street acceptances. Those are easy. Somebody new will do those.
You knew, aren't you? I'm a veteran, man.
I got murdered on 1084 last year because of something, so I'm.
I can send you this language. I just.
You want to do them?
I'll do it.
I'm gonna give them to Mike. Mike's gonna do that. They're super easy.
From the last couple, so.
Assessors piece.
We haven't gotten there yet.
What?
Okay. Planning, the 2 planning boards, those can be split or I can have the same person do them. Do you want those?
Well, and if I need to, I'll
Okay.
do 11, but
All right,
I,
Brian's doing 12. Do you want to do
I'll
one?
do 11.
You'll do 11. Okay, we'll got Rob doing
In the course of.
11. And then the last one is the conservation.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Joyce. Perfect.
Is this writing the recommendation and presenting?
Yes.
The assessors.
Wait, better yet.
No, the Board of Assessors is Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan. All right.
Jonathan.
I'm sorry.
No, did you get?
JT.
So just to go through it, so everybody knows, David Lutz is doing all the budget ones, capital and the budget.
How many are stop at 5?
1 through 5, but 2 of them were IP'd. She's gonna send them to you. Kiara's doing 6, which is the ride sharing, super easy. 7, we don't need anybody to do. 8 is Jonathan Howitz. 9 and 10 are Mike Gee. 11 is Rob Garrity. 12 is Brian Beachkowski, and 13 is Joyce. All good. Most of these, except for the 2 zoning ones, there is language already written in previous year's warrants. If you don't have access to them, just let me know and I can send them to you. And I will write the chair letter and get it to you in the. When, oh, that's nothing. When do you need what's your best date that you want these by? Not your last date. Don't give us the last one. Give us the best one. This is 12. I have to have it to the printer no later than 28. Okay, that's a long time away. We don't need that much time.
Oh,
Don't give us that much time. People will forget. So how about Friday the 21st or Monday the 24th? Let's say Friday, because the 21st. Okay, so Friday, the 21st, everybody have their stuff to Erica.
CCU.
CC me on it because last time somebody kept not sending it, but I had no idea they weren't sending it. And so it got, we were late getting to the printer, so let's don't do that again. That's eventful. It's usually not that eventful. Usually voting is very. No. The discussions are eventful. Usually the voting, though, we kind of already know how the voting's gonna go usually. And yes, Brian needs to have minutes
Make a
approved.
motion that we approve the minutes from our last meeting.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, yes, thank God. Motion to adjourn. Thank you. All in favor?